One.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Chatham Select Board June 8th, 2021 meeting. This is remote participation only. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify me. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 134-208-476#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. For now, please mute your audio until the proper time to speak, and also in order for us to have a more meaningful exchange with you at the time you are speaking, and if you're able, please activate your camera. And other times, if you walk away from your computer, please feel free to disable your video. Thank you. We're going to take a roll call to convene the Affordable Housing Trust. And I'll start with Selectman Kokolas.
Present.
Select Board Member Nicastro.
Present. Madam Chair, I think this should also be a roll call to convene the Select Board.
Do you? Okay, so we convene the Select Board first, or all together? All
Sure.
together. We can do it. Let me amend that this is a roll call to convene the Board of Selectmen and the Affordable Housing Trust. Okay. We have already heard present Board Member Kokolas, Board Member Nicastro.
Present.
Board Member Metters.
Present.
Trustee Bean.
Present.
Board Member Dykens.
Present.
And the chair is present. I will make a note that Trustee Story is unavailable tonight. Okay, thank you. So I will accept a motion at this time to convene an executive session with a return to this meeting directly after.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees go into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 23B, Number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, taking, lease, or value of real property, parenthesis, private property acquisition for affordable/attainable housing, if such discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the governmental body, with return to open session.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Let's take a roll. Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. All right, we're going to convene in executive session, folks. We will be back 20 minutes, I'm going to say. Okay, we will be back in this room shortly. So the trustees should go out and go into the next meeting room.
So we should leave this room. Okay, thank you.
Leave this room, yes.
Thanks.
Welcome back. We've convened from our executive session and we're back into the regular session at this time. I just want to take a roll to make sure that we are all here, and then we'll get going on the meeting. Bruce,
Aye. Here.
Corey,
Aye. Here.
Dean,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Okay, great. We're all here. All right. So our first order of business tonight is to approve the meeting minutes of June 8th. Oh, June 1st. Oh, gosh. Yeah, June 1st. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Dean has his hand up.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have one correction on page 2.
Great.
At the end of this, at the end of last, I'd like to drop the period after the word commission and delete the phrase "not the Board of Selectmen" as Ms. Lofgren's request suggested. And my reason is that the comment I offered at that meeting was not intended to be argumentative, but it was simply informational. And I think that phrase suggests the opposite. So I would request that that be deleted and the sentence with the word commission.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other edits or? Okay, hearing none from the board, we will take a vote. Peter,
Aye.
Corey,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Chair says aye. Meeting minutes are approved, 5-0-0. All right, we are going to do public announcements and agenda item requests. I just have a couple, if everybody would hold on. I just want to make sure everybody remembers that the annual town meeting is Saturday, July 12th. We'll be talking a bit more about that down the agenda at noontime. There is childcare for the town meeting on Saturday. You will need to reserve by 12 noon on Friday, June 11th. And you may do that to Susan and her address is smaybeal@chatham-ma.gov. Also, if anybody has not received their warrant yet, I think it's best that you can find one at the town hall or at the local post offices. If you cannot, please call town hall, and they will also probably be available at the meeting. Again, there's another, next week, we will be doing our first select board in-person hybrid meeting on June 15th. If you've been watching this meeting or waiting and been on Channel 18, I believe that Mark, our coordinator from Channel 18, did an informational PSA to give you a little download as to how we're going to do it next week. So the board will be meeting in person. We'll still be using the Teams app. This will not be a meeting where the public is invited into the room, and we'll slowly be evolving into a public participation route down the road. Okay, that's that for me. I see that Peter has his hand up. Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to let everybody know that the Airport Commission is providing an opportunity for the public to convey their comments on the posted environmental assessment. And their regularly scheduled meeting is tomorrow at 5 o'clock p.m. And I want everybody to know that comments are due by July 6th, and you can send them in by email to the Airport Commission at chatham-mass.gov. And as I said, the EA is posted on the Airport Commission's website, and you can find that under website under boards and committees. If you click on that and then go to Airport Commission. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Does staff have any announcements they'd like to make or agenda? We have Dr. Duncanson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give the board a quick update on where we stand with the PFAS situation
Yeah.
in well number 5 that was presented to you last week in a more comprehensive manner. I just wanted you to be aware of some things that have transpired over the last week or so that we can keep you and the community up to date. The public education material that was presented to you as a draft last week for review, that has been sent to DEP because it requires DEP approval before we can send it out to the community. So that was sent up to them yesterday, and we're waiting to hear back from them. We have a deadline to get that out to the community of June 16th. And so as soon as we get DEP's approval, we will get that posted up on the website as well in the mail to all the users of the public water system. In addition to that, yesterday, the Water Division completed the prolonged pump test at well number 4. If you remember, bringing well number 4 back online was one of the options that we talked about last week. Well number 4, as you know, has been offline since roughly 1990. It has been sampled quarterly for VOCs during that period of time because the issue of concern was PCE contamination that turned it off. But we did a prolonged pump test for about 12 days where we pumped that well to waste and then took some samples. Those samples were collected on the 7th, and we requested a 3-day lab turnaround. So hopefully we'll have the results of those back by the end of this week. And that will then help us and the consultants that are looking at bringing well number 4 back online, make a determination as to what the costs and all may be, and the feasibility of doing it. Because obviously we're concerned not only about the PCE that originally shut the well down, but also we just want to make sure that there's no PFAS in the well as well. And then the other thing that's going on is some samples, additional samples have been taken from well number 5 in terms of to help inform the blending decision. That was another option that we looked at, was blending well number 5 with well number 8 in order to reduce the levels of PFAS coming out of well number 5 below the MCL for Massachusetts, which is 20 parts per trillion. One test was taken out of well number 5 back on May 20th. And I have to report to you that result did come back yesterday, and the level in well number 5 has actually increased slightly. It's now up to 56.6. So we have not, well, that information has been shared with DEP. It's not one of the required samples. It was more informational to help us and the consultants to again determine to what extent we can blend wells number 5 and 8 together. And so that is good information to have, even though unfortunately the result did go up. We are going to continue to do that kind of sampling to help inform that decision and help us indicate whether or not we can successfully blend well 5 and 8 and have contamination levels that are below the limits set by the state. One of the other things we're going to do is when we do take those samples, rather than just taking a single sample each time, we're going to take duplicate samples going forward to get an idea of whether or not there's a lot of variability in the system. I mean, right now we basically have 3 samples out of well number 5, but over a prolonged period, if you will. But really what we need to know is how much variability. So when you take samples roughly a minute apart or so, known as duplicate samples, you get a much better idea of whether or not the levels in that well are consistently high or are they fluctuating back and forth. And that's important information to have. So that's where we are. Also reviewed the contract with Weston.
Hold on, Bob, just a minute. Could I ask that people please mute their audio so that we may be able to hear Dr. Duncanson's report? We're getting a lot of feedback. Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, yeah, just a final thing. We did receive a preliminary draft agreement from Weston and Sampson to do the work that we talked about last week to do the designs and all for well number 4, as well as looking at well number 5 in terms of future treatment and whatnot. We did review that. We've made some comments to them, and hopefully we'll have that contract back shortly signed. I've also spoken with the finance director, and we have a plan, and I signed some paperwork today requesting a reserve fund transfer through the finance committee so we can get that contract underway immediately, rather than waiting for the start of the new fiscal year. So that's where we currently are, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Good job.
All right. Yeah, staying on this is the big importance, and I think
Yeah.
the plan laid out is as we go forward looks good, as you presented last week. Thanks for the update. That's good information to know. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. We'll see you in a bit. Okay. Any public participants wishing to speak, make public announcements? I see that Frank Messina has his hand up. Frank?
Hi, thank you very much. It's really interesting following Dr. Duncanson with such serious matters, but here goes. Hi, I'm Frank Messina, and I have a group in town called Historic Chatham that we established in 2013 following the tercentennial. It's a group of all of the historic venues and National Register sites in the town of Chatham. And the purpose of Historic Chatham is to basically let the public know that Chatham's a little more than sharks, and there's a lot going on in this town in terms of our history and our culture. The Historic Chatham group consists of 8 groups: the Chatham Windmill, the Atwood Museum, the Marconi National Wildlife Refuge, the Calb Nickerson Homestead, the Railroad Museum, Elbridge Public Library, and the Mayo House. And every year, the Historic Chatham group does what we call History Weekend. Of course, we've been usurped a bit with the town meeting, but we are going to press on. And there's a number of events and that is happening from June 11th to 13th, Thursday through Sunday. All of the venues will be opening, offering tours, special events for 2021. Most of the museums, specifically the Atwood and the Marconi, were hurt like everybody else did because of COVID, and they depend a great deal of their support on public visitors. But there will be some discounted admissions over the weekend. The purpose of History Weekend is to not only have the general public understand what the history of Chatham is, but also try to have local folks come and see. It's like living in New York City and never going to the Statue of Liberty. But just some highlights: the public library, Eldridge Library, has a number of talks that's going to be happening. The Marconi is having its centennial exhibit for the formation of RCA. The Nickerson Family Association have self-guided tours. The Mayo House will be open for tours, and specifically on a really good note, the Chatham Railroad Museum is going to be open, and there's a ribbon cutting relative to the newly restored historic caboose, which was restored with CPA funds, and that's Sunday between 1 and 4 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, they'll have the ribbon cutting. The actual Historic Chatham has a virtual tour, which will give a history of the Chatham Lighthouse, and the Lighthouse Overlook. So all of this information is obtainable if you go online to the Historic Chatham website. It's www.historic-chatham.org. Again, historic-chatham.org. So, or just put in Historic Chatham, it'll come out. The highlight of the weekend, because I'm a member of the Chatham Windmill group, is that we're going to have Rose Clancy and her guitarist Max Cohen in concert from noon to 1 o'clock on Sunday the 13th. And God willing, and we get some nice wind, we'll also be grinding corn. So again, thank you very much for the time, and I hope everybody gets a chance, in addition to everything else on this very important weekend with the town meeting, to get a chance to look at some of these other venues and participate. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Frank. That sounds like a fun-filled weekend. Appreciate it. Our next is Stephen Buckley. Stephen?
Thank you. I'm a little confused with the new, with the relative public comment policy, so I'm not sure. I just wanted to offer that since one of the items involves 1533 Main Street, I was going to be standing by if there were any questions as a representative for the Buckley family in negotiations. So I just wanted you to know that I was, when that comes,
Okay. All right. I'm
I
getting the gist of it.
be available for
Thank,
anything. So,
thank you, Stephen.
and
Go ahead.
um, one of the other items is the social media policy. So I guess should I speak now to that, or is that
No,
another thing where?
this is public announcement period. We have public comments down the agenda. So
Okay,
you'll have an
well then,
opportunity.
I guess, okay, agenda item request, and it falls under an agenda item.
This is for public
Once
announcement,
again,
agenda item requests.
social media policy. Mhm. I have requested in the past that there be an advisory committee on communications. Once again, this social media is an example of that. So I just want to, as we update the list of future agenda items, please add social media, remote participation. The list goes on and on about the need for that. So hopefully someday we'll be able to talk about doing something so we don't make up policy and practices on the fly. And the other
Okay.
thing
All
was,
right. I think we're getting into some.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other public remote participants want to make a public announcement or agenda item request? This is our public announcement policy is in the packet. If anybody wants to review it, I'm happy to do so. It's been read several times, but I think that we don't see any, so I'm not going to move that forward. We're going to go, I'm just going to do a little review of the meeting at this time. And we are going to go into new business. I'm going to ask that you please mute your mics again. We're going to go into new business. We'll have a coronavirus update from Dr. Duncanson and the town manager. You'll be able to ask questions at that time to either one of them on what they report out. The next item is public comment time, and that's where you may speak to any of the agenda items that are listed in the packet at this time. I'll go over those when we get to that. Before we have our business agenda, we will have a public hearing for consideration of an application for a new wine and malt only alcohol beverage package store license. After we do the public hearing, we will go into our business agenda, which we will be discussing a new victualler's license, property acquisition, Article 18, and then we will get an annual town meeting housing article overview and next steps. Then we'll move to an adult daycare memorandum of agreement. And then we'll hear from the town moderator and the town manager on our annual meeting preparation setup and continuance and possible rain dates. And then we'll have a review of our social media policy. This will be our second review. And then reappointments to board and commissions and committees, and we'll adjourn. Okay, so that's our meeting for tonight. So let's go to the coronavirus update. And our first person up is Dr. Duncanson. Bob?
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just quickly tonight, because things are, I hate to say, kind of settling into the new normal. As everybody's aware, Massachusetts lifted pretty much all restrictions back on May 29th. And so, you know, we really don't have too much to talk about these days. I can tell you that we are still at 326 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic. That number has not changed in the last couple of weeks, which is great news. We also have, unfortunately, we have 30 deaths of Chatham residents. That number has not changed since back in March. And so I will forego showing those usual slides. I did want to touch base, just show you quickly a couple of slides that we normally touch on. So let me share my screen here. And the first one that I wanted to show you is the average daily incident rate Hopefully everybody can see this. And this is through last Thursday. And I think the important thing to notice here, after we had the big spike in January and then we had the smaller spike in April, we have not dropped back to zero. We still have basically a very low level of, coronavirus still in the community. And I think, as we've been saying, just because all the requirements were lifted back on the 29th, COVID-19 did not disappear. And when you see figures like this, and a graph where things kind of plateau out and then remain there, that's an indication. The other slide that I wanted to show you, just quickly here, and this is what we've talked about before. This is statewide data for a 2-week period as of last Thursday. And again, we continue to see that it's the 20 to 29-year-old and the 30 to 39-year-old age demographics where we're seeing the vast majority of cases now in Massachusetts. Unlike earlier in the pandemic when it was really the older demographic that was hit the hardest, it's now that 20 to 39-year-old demographic. And then just finally, the vaccine percentages for Chatham, which continue to show good trends. So on the top, we have a graph as of June 1st. And on the bottom, we have the one from the previous week of May 25th, just to show how things have changed over time. And I think the important thing to keep in mind here is we continue to see improvement. And actually, we've seen a great jump, or not particularly in this 2-week period. But as you can see, the 16 to 19-year-olds are almost catching up with several of our older demographics, indicating that there's been a lot of vaccine given out to those, kind of younger folks, if you will. And we're also seeing a fairly significant shift in the number of fully vaccinated people in all the age groups and less people in the quote partially vaccinated, as more and more people get their second shot and that 2-week period to be quote fully vaccinated passes either after your second shot or your single shot of the J&J vaccine. So these trends continue to be good, but again, it kind of shows that the younger demographic, that 20 to 29-year-old, and the 30 to 30, in this case, 30 to 49-year-olds are the lowest in terms of vaccination rates. So still something that needs to be worked on both locally in Chatham as well as on Cape Cod. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bob. It looks like Dean has his hand up. Dean? You
Dean,
need to
you're muted.
unmute. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Bob. Just a question about the vaccination rates for the younger demographics, 12 and up, the first 2 categories. Do we have any sense as to which vaccine the younger demographic is taking? Are they getting the Pfizer or Moderna, or are they getting the single dose? It's hard to tell.
I don't have that kind of data. It's really whatever clinic they happen to go to, whatever vaccine's available.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jeff?
Yeah, great report once again, Bob. I love those vaccination slides. They're great, and we really made some significant progress. And I'm not an expert, but boy, it looks like Chatham's getting close to quote unquote herd immunity, if you will. And I'm kind of, as much as I enjoy these updates by you, Dr. Duncanson, I'm looking forward to the day when you're not giving them. Thank you.
I agree. Corey?
No, I was just going to say, in response to Dean's question, I do know both in the middle and high schools have had, clinics, and they're offering most of them are 2-shot vaccination. So it's either Moderna or Pfizer. I believe it's Pfizer. I know all 3 of my oldest have had their first shot, and they're set in there. That happens to be Pfizer. They get their second shot next week, and child number 3 the week after that. But the schools are apparently having 2-shot vaccinations, so that kind of helps provide a little bit of local guidance, I guess.
Thank you, Corey.
That's great. Okay, any public participants would like to ask Dr. Duncanson a question? or have a comment? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Any of the folks on the phone? You can speak out if you want to ask a question. All right, I'm not hearing any. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great. Okay, we have an update from our town manager, Jill Goldsmith. Jill?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So just a reminder that the town offices at 549, the DPW, and the annex will open to the public on the 14th. So on Monday, masks are welcome, but they're not required. And then for the other buildings, we have the reentry into the community center that will begin on June 28th. And that's because the park program is still going on and we wanted to dedicate the community center to the park program and the students. But after June 28th, summer camp will be there and will open to reentry to the public between the hours of 1 and 9 p.m. And that can also accommodate self-service meeting rooms as well. And then the Council on Aging will have building access available, but they do require masks, and that's starting on June 14th, which is Monday. And then the transfer station, as you had voted last week, you approved for it to remain open for 6 days and use the Wednesdays to do cleaning and also to transport materials off-site. Again, masks are not required, they're welcome. And then we're hoping with our volunteers to open up the swap shot, hopefully by June 15th or soon thereafter. And the last item that I want to report on is this week, because of the launch of our new website, is going to be our last community update that's going to focus on COVID. It's update number 54. And I want to thank Shauna Neely for her hard work and creative and dedication to putting 54 of these together almost weekly, soon after we declared the emergency. So there will still be this type of outreach and engagement with the residents and community, but it will be through our new website. So we're pretty excited about that. So again, thank you, Shauna, for your hard work.
Thank you, Jill. And yes, thank you, Shauna, for all the work that you've done putting all of that together. It was helpful and informative to the community. We appreciate that. Any questions for Jill from the board? None? Okay, any from the remote participants? Any from the folks on the phone? All right, I'm not hearing any. Thank you, Jill. We're going to move on to our public hearing notification, which we will have our clerk, Corey Matters, read.
Madam Chair, I think we have to do the public comments.
Oh, no, hold on. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Yep, you're right. My apologies. All right, this is the opportunity for public comments for any of our business agenda items. As a note, the public hearing you'll be able to speak to during that hearing, but this will be in relationship to the agenda items, the license for Sweet Dreams Ice Cream, property acquisition, annual town meeting articles overview, Orleans adult daycare memorandum, town meeting prep, social media policy, and reappointments to the board. Okay, Elaine, you have your hand up. Elaine?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is regarding the social media policy and the rules for the public. It does say the public is not allowed to post any comments that support or oppose ballot questions. So I was wondering if we could get a clarification on that during the presentation. Does that include any comments on capital projects that are on the ballot for debt exclusion? Because we go to the polls afterwards and vote on that. So that would be one question. And if it does apply to those comments, does that same restriction apply to any town postings on capital projects? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Stephen Buckley, you're next.
Okay, I guess I'm curious. I read in the minutes that the town manager said under for the social media agenda item, that what was being proposed was something that was used by other municipalities, but it's unclear to me where this came from, whether it was written from scratch or is it being adopted? Is it some boilerplate language that many other towns perhaps originated in the Massachusetts Municipal Association. I guess it would be nice to know where this came from so we can have a better product. But I guess the upside is that we'll be able to use social media to talk about what's working and what's not working. So at least there's some outlet there. I'm just curious about where this came from, because there's a lot of people with a lot of experience in social media. I remembered I bought my first computer with a modem 30 years ago this year. So a lot of people, a lot of wisdom that should have been advised. So, but maybe we can move forward and this be a good way to start. But curious about where it came from. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Any other public comments on our business agenda items? You can raise your hand in the Teams app, or you can speak out if you're on the phone. All right, I don't see any other comments, so we will move on and we'll address those accordingly. So we're going to move back to the public hearing notice. Corey, can you read it, please?
Absolutely. Town of Chatham Select Board Public Hearing Notice. Notice is hereby given. The Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. remotely through the Microsoft Teams application to consider a request for a new annual wine and malt only alcohol beverage package store license from Squire Shop LLC, DBA The Squire Shop, Brewery McMullen, manager, 488 Main Street, Chatham, Mass. 02633. All interested parties are encouraged to attend. Signed, the members of the select board.
Thank you, Corey. All right, so what we're looking at is the Squire Shop LLC looking to acquire an annual wine and malt only alcohol beverage package store license. I just want to know, are any of the principals from the Squire Shop on, or the manager? That would be Mr. Hurl, Brian or Rebecca Vocal, or the manager Drury McMullen, that would like to speak to this this issue or answer questions if we have any.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Todd Hurl. I'm
Okay.
on the line.
All right, Todd. Great. All right, can you give us a little overview of what you're looking for here? We have your application, and just maybe a little bit of an overview would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the Squire, for about a year, the Squire's been brewing its own beer that we call Squire Lager. We do it in conjunction with Devil's Purse Brewery, which is in West Dennis, and it's kind of a light beer. It's a lager, and we've been pouring it, through our taps since we reopened, and we recently went ahead and started canning it in four packs, similar to what you would see Devil's Purse canning their other beers. And so the idea is that we'd love to be able to, sell a Squire branded beer in a 4-pack at the Squire Shop. And so that was the genesis of the request. I guess I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. I guess I have a couple of questions. I'm sure the other board members have it. You do list Drury McMullen as the manager for this application, and he has indicated that he would be working, intend to be on the licensed premise 40 hours. He's also listed as your Squire manager as well, and lists his hours of on that premise at 40 hours. Is there so that your manager is going to be managing 2 different locations? Is that going to be an issue for your operation in any manner? I mean, that's an 80-hour work week for somebody, conceivably, as the applications sort of indicate.
Yeah, that's a lot of hours. I think the idea is that Drew would be present at the Squire for 40 hours, and the Squire's directly across the street from the Squire shop. If the requirement is to have him be in the Squire shop for 40 hours a week, that's something that we're going to have to adjust. He won't be able to do that. We'd have to find somebody else who would. But again, the idea was that he's going to be at the Squire, which is right across the street. 487 is right across the street from 488.
Okay.
But he would, yeah.
I think Shauna might be able to clarify the requirement of hours. I think, Shauna, is there a requirement that somebody physically be present on the hours that they indicate, according to ABCC?
The ABCC requests the number of hours the manager is likely to be, but I do not believe that they have a enforcement of that. We do have several businesses that have a manager of record that is not present for, say, several months of the year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Todd, I have another question. Can you describe to me the Squire shop, what it's like? I haven't been in. I haven't, well, because of COVID, I haven't really gone into any shops downtown yet. Can you describe to me what it is? Is it a souvenir shop or clothing store?
Yeah, it's largely apparel. I think apparel would be our biggest category. Branded apparel that's branded, with the Squire. We sell some other items. We sell glassware. We actually sell Yeti. So we sell Yeti coolers and thermoses. We sell keychains made by Smathers and Branson, signs that are made by another vendor. So it's a combination of products that are either apparel, branded Squire apparel, or other products, or other items that we think are in keeping with the Squire, are in keeping with the customers that come through the store. Everything doesn't necessarily have to be branded the Squire. We could have one-off brushes one-off products like a boat brush that we think is particularly good. We might have that in the store. But by and large, that's the product set of the store.
So you've described to me that you have a particular beer with a local brewery that you've branded and you've been selling at the Squire, and that you want to put it into the building here. This particular license is for a wine and malt only alcohol beverage package store. That's the way the license reads. It's not just a malt license. Would there be any plans in the future to expand into a wine and malt package store if your license was granted?
I view a package store as a liquor store that doesn't, or a beer and wine package store is a liquor store that doesn't sell liquor, but doesn't really sell other items. The Squire shop would never be, viewed as a package store. I think, the idea is that we'll have a small refrigerated case that will initially have 4 packs of Squire Lager. To the extent we find a wine that we'd like to get behind, we could add that to the product set. But the products the beer and wine that we sell at the Squire shop is going to be kind of a Squire branded product per se. Okay. So I wouldn't view this as your average 7-Eleven that has a beer and wine license and it sells everything under the sun. We're going to be real specific to the Squire products that we create.
Okay. One more question from me, and then I'll turn it over to my fellow board members. If this is on enforcement, and this is, I think, a kind of a concern. Summertime, you've got to line out the Squire door. People can't get in because there's a wait, which is not uncommon. It's a very common occurrence. And somebody knows that you have beer over next door, and they run over and they just, grab a 4-pack and they, sort of open it up while they're waiting in line and illegally drink on the streets of Chatham. How are you going to regulate that, message that's not allowed, and enforce any of the issues that would come up like that? And maybe that's for your manager to know, to answer. I don't know if he's on the call.
Well, no, I can answer that.
Okay.
One thing we were talking about to mitigate, the risk is to cut off the sales of any beer and wine after a certain time in the day. The line typically builds later in the day. It built a little bit earlier this past Memorial Day weekend, but historically the line is kind of a later night occurrence. And so the idea was that we would maybe shut off sales at 9 o'clock for any beer and wine, just to mitigate that risk. Also, we have a pretty sizable security staff at the Squire in the form of bouncers, and so we were planning on allocating some portion of that to the Squire shop just to make sure everything was being done properly and everything was copacetic over there, and then also train our staff like we train our bouncers to check IDs and the like. But those are the items that we had on our agenda to make sure we have a safe environment in front of the Squire, and that nobody is cracking beers in an open container fashion against the law.
Okay, one more question. If you go into the village market and there's a teenager checking out ringing you out, and you bring a bottle of wine up through from your cart, they can't touch it. They have to get a manager. Are you going to be staffed enough to have somebody over 18 always on staff to be able to sell the alcohol if in fact, when somebody wants to purchase it?
I mean, yes, if that's what's required, that's how we'll be staffed.
Shauna,
So we
yeah. I mean, I think that's something that you would want to find out, Todd, I think that is a state law, Shauna, isn't it? That you can't
Yes.
have a minor sell alcohol.
Yes, minors under 18 cannot serve or sell alcohol in the state.
Right. All right. I think that's something that's pretty important to know. All right. I'm going to turn it over to the board right now, and they'll ask some questions, and then we'll have some public questions or comments, and then we'll read some emails. And there probably are some further questions, Todd. So hang tight here. Corey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure how you want me to approach this. I have a huge list of questions and comments, and do you want me to tackle them one at a time, or kind of put them on the plate and see where we go from there? Or
Are these emails that you received?
No. These are just. I mean, in disclosure, I mean, I grew up in town. I've spent a couple hours at the Squire over the years. As a younger person. And I, grew up with Drury, consider him a childhood friend. So I know the character of the manager, but I'm also a downtown merchant, and I do have a bunch of questions and comments that I just want to put on the table so we can do this in full, thorough review, because this is kind of a unique application.
Corey, go ahead and ask your questions, and let's look through them.
So my first question is, you kind of hit on this, is the private label Devil's Purse package 4 cans, I'm assuming would be sold warm and cold in some portion of the retail spot. I mean, the retail location is not extensively large, so I'm just trying to understand the location of that, in the retail spot. How much dedicated area are we discussing? Because it appears that you're not trying to be a package store, but you're trying to complement this private label into the existing items? I guess that's question one.
Yeah, I would say, no more than 10% of the square footage of the shop would be dedicated, to this.
Okay.
And to answer your other question, are we going to sell it cold or warm? We're going to sell it cold. I don't think we're going to be selling a lot of warm 4-packs, but we will have them available, most likely, because we'll have to, replenish, as things sell.
Okay. Let me kind of, I'm actually going to tackle this following the 7 criteria that for the ABCC. Maybe it'd be more efficient or more appropriate for me to handle it that way. First criteria is the number of existing dispensaries in the locality. We've had other package stores in the past. We had a full-scale package store at Epicure many, many moons ago. They have gone. There was also a package store next to the between Mayflower and Maui Gold several years back. So there has been history of some kind of package store in this area. But right now we really don't have any of the such. So that's not necessarily a concern of mine. The second criteria is views of the inhabitants on the locality in which the license is situated. It's a public hearing. I hope we do get some public input on this. I know there's some emails that the chair has received, so we can review this. But depending on, and maybe this is a premature comment, I'm not sure if this is going to be an appropriate consideration to maybe continue this public hearing so we can do this in the most efficient manner possible. But I will reserve that position for later. But this is a unique application. Criteria 3 is traffic. It's a downtown area. I don't think the traffic, I think there is going to be any more or less than any other location. So that's not a concern of mine. Criteria 4 is noise. I guess my question would be, what is your hours of operation for the shop? You mentioned that you're going to potentially cut off sales of the alcoholic product at 9. But we all know at the Square, when it gets out, there's a little gathering in the main street. And I'm assuming, or I guess I would hope, the retail shop is closed prior to 1 o'clock. But I'm wondering what your hours of operation might be.
10 o'clock was when we were thinking we would close, during the summer.
Okay. Second criteria is the size. Again, it's a small location, so I'm just trying to understand. You said about 10-foot dedication to the beer and wine. So I appreciate that response very much. Criteria 6 is the sort of operation that carries the license. Not sure how to interpret that exactly, but I guess the questions I'm gonna garnish from that one is, we're incorporating, this is two very distinct licenses, held separately. But there's also some connection between the retail spot and then the established restaurant and bar across the street. So I guess, I don't know if Shauna can answer this, or if there's any legal opinions. Like, God forbid there's a violation on one, does that impact the other, or are these treated solely separately? Because, I mean, if this was as a restaurant across the street and another retail store asking for this license, I wouldn't even consider this question. But there's a clear connection, and I just don't know if there's any legal components that we need to consider, because this is, again, a very unique situation. I don't think we've ever dealt with this type of request, at least in my memory. So I don't know if Shauna could answer that, if possible.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So the licenses are 2 separate, distinct licenses. The only connection would be if say the Squire was inspected and got a hit from the ABCC, that there could be possible implications to having the same manager on the shop license. So the
Okay.
violation would not hit the shop license, but it could possibly hit the manager himself.
Okay, okay. And then the seventh criteria is the reputation of the applicant. Like I say, I grew up with Drew. I know as a manager, if he's the one who's going to be physically responsible at the location, I can vouch for his, his reputation. But I do think that with the chair mentioning earlier, 40 hours at each location doesn't seem realistic. And I believe Mr. Hurl kind of recognizes that could be a limitation. So I think that those details would need to be restructured to what is realistic. I know Shauna mentioned how that would play out with the ABC asking for the hours of operation, but I want to make sure that he covers both sites in as appropriate a business manner as possible. And 40 hours in each location is certainly not realistic. So those are my general thoughts at the moment. This is, we're looking at a very unique situation, pro or con. You also got to look at the fact that, you've got people who have moved here, brought their families here to work and try to, make an income that are part of this project. You've got a local brewery who also employs local families that are trying to expand and make a living for local families and stuff. So there's more to this than just the retail element. There's a lot of other layers, and I think this is a very unique situation, and I want to tread carefully on this. But I very much look forward to the public comments and want us to consider this very, very closely because it's unique. So those are my comments for now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Corey. Dean?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Todd, for your presentation. I had a couple of questions. Either Todd or Shauna, is Mr. McMullen also the manager at the Captain's House Inn, which I believe is under the same principal ownership and maybe a different LLC or corporation structure?
Again, Madam Chair, through you, the manager on the Captain's House Inn is actually Mr. Hurl.
Okay, just something on the application, because the word manager is also used in addition to Mr. McMullen. It's used on the second page. I guess it's the first page of the application. Under paragraph 4, the application contact, and it's Christian Asensio, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the title is manager. Maybe that's just an employment title. I don't know. It just seems there's a little bit of a confusion in my mind as to whether there's any conflict between that title and Drew McMullen's title. Maybe Todd, you have a clarification on that.
I think Drew is the manager of record for the liquor license for the Squire, and Christian is like the general manager of the Squire.
Okay.
Yeah.
I visited the shop yesterday, so I just had a question about the second floor. I recall of having been in that premises. Your mother had the gallery there. I think she had paintings on the second floor. Is there any public activity on the second floor, or is that just storage? I peeked up from the lower end of the staircase. It didn't look like it was a public place.
Yeah. The initial hope was that we'd have retail space up there, but we need it for stock. So it's not open to the public. It's essentially being used to restock the first floor on a just-in-time basis.
Okay. And then one last question on the application. Under the financial disclosure, it asks for purchase price of real estate and the business assets. Those are obviously not relevant here, but then it has under other $100,000. Can you tell us what that is for? Wasn't sure.
I'm
not sure disclosing trade secrets. I don't want to hear that.
No. The initial capitalization of the business was north of $100,000. I'm not sure where the $100,000 came from. The business doesn't own any real estate. It owns the shop, and it owns all of the merchandise in the shop. But the business was capitalized was north of $100,000 about a year ago, and it's well capitalized today.
So that's presumably the inventory and the improvements within the shop.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. I'm going to reserve comments until after we've had a chance to hear from the public. I did read Corey listed 7 criteria that Shauna passed out, I think for the benefit of the public, because I don't think this was in the package. This was in the form of a memorandum that was sent by the town administrator in Harwich to their Board of Selectmen back in 2012, referring to a Massachusetts appeals court case called Ballerin versus Licensing Board of Boston. I read that case this afternoon, and that does lay out these items that Corey recited as matters and consider. And the statute does read as 138, section 23 maybe, requires that if a licensing board denies a license, it has to recite the reason therefore in their decision. And so I'll just stop here, and we'll come back later when we have a chance to deliberate on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. I think Peter is next, then Jeff. Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Todd, for your presentation. I think I understand what you're trying to do. You have you're trying to put as many products as you can that are associated with the Squire and sell them at a retail store. I too used what Shauna sent out and the 7 criteria or considerations that we should have. I think Corey did a nice job of going through them. To me, I would tend to agree with what was said previously, with the exception of first of all, I think the most important thing on that criteria is the view of the individuals that are in the area and the locality. I think that's critical for us to understand. And I understand we have emails, but I haven't seen any. Maybe I just missed it for this time, and it's on there. I'll take another look. The other is, it was mentioned that we have had package stores in the area, and that's true, and especially the Epicurean that I know of, and also the other one by the Mayflower, and they were beer and wine. They were focused specifically on being a package store. So their focus was package. They had people that understand what to do, and they probably sold other things on the side. I know Epicurean did. And my concern is that we have a retail shop, which I get, but as an addition, we're going to sell beer. Now, on its face, that is not necessarily it's not necessarily a conflict, but it is unique, and it's a little bit different. And the minute you throw alcohol in and the ABCC, it's more than just selling retail products. And I think you understand that, but I just wonder how that fits within the neighborhood. And I haven't made a decision positively yet, but I have some concerns with that. And I guess that's basically it. I too would like to listen to what the public has to say. I don't really have a question for you, Todd. You answered all the other ones, and I'm fine with that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Peter. Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Shireen. Todd, welcome. Nice to hear you again. Generally, I'm very supportive of our business community, especially the downtown area, and now in our beautiful new West Chatham Village Center and our Village Center up there in North Chatham as well. I do want to hear from the public before I come down on this one. I have some concerns about hours of operation. in conflict with when the Squire is open and you've got a line of people outside the Squire and that venue across the street is open with cold beer. So I'm interested in limiting, if you are approved, and seriously limiting the sales of beer across the street there. While especially over the Memorial Day weekend, there was a heck of a crowd downtown. And God love you, you emerged from the COVID and an awful time to open a business. I get it, but I think we got to think about the milieu down there. You've got the potential to have open beer sales on Main Street while the Squire's, bustling. You've got the Impotent Oyster around the corner. You've got the Wild Goose right there. You've got Bluefins right there, and you've got the Squire itself right there. So, you've got plenty of places to imbibe, but they're all inside. So I just want to make sure that whatever we come up with tonight, if anything, that we're not inviting the use of alcohol, the drinking of alcohol on Main Street, at untoward times. So, you said 9 p.m. I think 9 is going to butt up against the Squire being open and folks down there as well. So I've got some concerns there, but I do definitely want to hear from the public, especially your other businesses in the general area. I saw that Mr. Oppenheim was on, and hopefully we'll hear from others as well. But those are my thoughts. And I also, Drury McMullen is going to be spread real thin. I have to note that, I think we had Mr. Sullivan there to start, and then Captain Bob was there for a while, and now Drury's there. So, it's not my business, frankly, but if you're asking for a package license, I guess I make it mine, that you've had 3 different managers there, and hopefully Drury settles in, especially with the busy summer coming. If Memorial Day is any indication of what the Square is going to be like this summer, it was pretty packed. Anyway, I want to listen to the public, and those are my initial thoughts. I did review those 7 criteria. I found them very helpful. I think a couple are certainly in play as we consider your application for a license, and I thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. We have presently in the remote participation 4 people requesting to comment or speak on this matter. So I'm going to start with them, and then we'll read the emails that were sent. So the first person with their hand up is Stephen Buckley. Stephen. Stephen, I think you're muted.
Sorry, my hand's not up.
Oh, it's not up? Okay. All right, then I'll take your hand down. All right, so our first person is Marianne Lewis. Ms. Lewis, welcome. You can unmute yourself.
Hi.
And hi there.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. I actually own Violet's and Jackie's, well, my whole family does. And so I'm directly next door to the Squire shop. And I definitely have some concerns. I'm kind of new hearing about this. I didn't hear about it until I saw it listed in the Chronicle. But my concern is that I don't see there to be any reason why any of the retail shops should be selling alcohol. Last weekend on Memorial Day weekend, the lines for the Squire bar side were fairly long at 6:30. And I think that this summer, with people have been pent up, especially in that age group, it's going to be even longer and earlier. And I think that Mr. Hurls is being a little optimistic, thinking he's going to have enough staff to adequately police the line outside the Squire as well as the Squire's shop to make sure that nobody is buying underage, simply because I know that every single business in town, the Village Market, everybody is struggling to actually have enough employees this year. And I think that selling cold beer really appeals to people wanting to drink it right away. It's not like you want to take your beer home back to Connecticut or wherever because you love the Squire so much. Having it cold means you're going to drink it soon. And I think you open that up to potentially getting a lot of, okay, my boyfriend's 22, me and my friends, we're 20. So he's going to go to the Squire shop, get some beer, and we're all going to hang out at the bandstand. Sweet. That type of situation. And that will also tax the efforts of the local Chatham police even more on a Saturday and Friday night than they need to be. And even any weeknight, frankly, when it's in the heart of the summer. I think it was a very brilliant idea for him to private label and brand his, the Esquire establishment on a local brewery. But I think a better use of selling it would be for him to have a nice, great display on one of his shelves of empties and send people either to the Squire to purchase it at the hostess stand, which is where they used to purchase souvenirs before the Squire shop opened, if that's legal. And if that's not legal, then they should direct them to one of the actual liquor stores in town and have the beer sell that way. If the selectman does agree to approve this license, then can we all get one? Can I have a private label with the wine company to have Violet's Vino? Because what would stop it? And my last point is, some of you know that we also have stores in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the French Quarter. And over the years, from time to time, I do relay my worry that Main Street Chatham is creeping towards the commercialization that has, somewhat affected the French Quarter. Even in the French Quarter, retail stores cannot have any beer or wine to sell. It's at a liquor store, a bar, or a package store, period. There is no store in the French Quarter that sells T-shirts, that sells souvenirs, that sells clothing, that is allowed to have beer or wine for sale. And I think that they probably figured out there's a good reason for that. And so I would advise and hope that the select board would vote no on this, especially this year. I don't think this is something, a box we need to open up this year when, we've got a lot going on just coming back from COVID with crowds. I think we should try to keep it reasonable. Okay, thank you for listening to me. I really do appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a great summer.
And thank you, Mary Ann. Our next commenter is Ann. Ann, you have the floor.
Good evening, thank you. I agree with Mary Ann on many points, and I like what she brought up and her facts and that sort of thing. While I do appreciate branded goods, one of my additional questions, not to repeat what Mary Ann said, and I do not know her, is would this also then open up for tasting? Because package stores do tasting. They do beer tasting, they do wine tasting. So down the line, where is there no guarantee that that would occur? But I tend to believe that it does not belong in this store. And there are many other ways to brand it and sell it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we have the full name of that speaker?
Yes.
Ann Dixon.
Ann Dixon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, our next commenter is David Oppenheim. David, welcome. You may unmute.
Am I unmuted?
You are. Go right ahead.
I'd like to. I wrote something out. I'd like to read through it, and I have a couple of additional comments.
Okay, good.
We've been on business now. We've been on business on Main Street now for over 25 years, and we actually support business being creative and doing what is necessary to be successful. The economy is always in flux, and we have to be willing to and able to adjust to the changing interests of clients. However, I strongly object to this application. Squires are a very important mainstay business, along with places like the Candy Manor, the Ingenuity, Wayside.
David, can you hold
David,
on?
we can't hear you.
We're having a problem with your mic. I'm just looking. Do you have do you have a phone on or somebody else listening in? Anybody else that's logged in? You look like you're logged in twice here.
I don't think so.
All right. Okay. Let's try it again. Yeah, let's try it again.
All right. Is this working better?
So far.
Okay.
Can you start back at the beginning, David? Because I missed every other.
All right, that's fine. I'll start over. We've been in business on Main Street for over 25 years and support businesses being creative and doing what is necessary to be successful. The economy is always in flux, and we have to be willing and able to adjust to the changing interest of our clients. However, I do strongly object to this application. The Squire is a very important mainstay business, along with places like the Candy Manor, Yankee Ingenuity, the Wayside Inn, and the large variety of long-time businesses that make our downtown unique and desirable. When the Hurl Gallery closed after many successful years, the opening of the Squire shop was an excellent move. It's managed by Rebecca and Brian Vocal, who also own Mahi Gold, which has done very well since opening 7 years ago. They're highly respected as managers and have become part of the community, the retail community. The Squire Shops appears to be doing great, and I certainly wish them continued success. But it is a small souvenir gift shop, not a place to buy alcohol, certainly not a package store under any circumstances. Our walking downtown is a place for families to enjoy a variety of stores of all types, art galleries, restaurants, Kate Gould Park. It's not a place where people should be buying a bottle or I had a 6-pack, but I'll change it to a 4-pack of beer to carry around when they tour town. Buying cold beer downtown and not, unless you're getting in a car and driving away, you're going to be drinking it soon. Otherwise, it's going to get warm. That makes no sense. The Squire Shop is next to the Candy Manor, Kate Gould Park, ice cream shops, and kids are everywhere, many old enough to go it alone. My grandchildren are now old enough to go downtown with their friends and explore the stores, get lunch, get ice cream cones. They've been to the Squire Shop. They like it, along with Chatham Cookware, Ducks in the Windows, and so many others. But they are not allowed to enter package stores, nor do I think they would be welcomed. While only proposing to sell small quantities of Squire branded beer or wine, it is simply not appropriate. Will the Black Dog ask to sell its already branded alcohol products? Maybe the Wild Goose will get its own beer and wine and want to sell it at the Mayflower Shop. It makes no sense. These are not package stores. These are gift items. These are promotional items. I certainly understand the Squire's desire to expand its brand. It's an important brand, but it should do so by promoting its beer or wine in the restaurant and selling it at retail package stores. It should not be asking this board to pretend the Squire gift shop is a package store. It's not. Some states allow you to actually sell beer in your restaurants and things. Massachusetts has chosen not to. It spells out what package stores are. We have six package stores in town, in Chatham. 2 of them, the Chatham Liquor Store and the Village Market, serve our downtown area. They have a wide variety of choices, not just a single branded product. They have parking. They serve the public need and convenience. Corey brought up the fact that several have, there's been the Epicure. The Epicure was here for years. It closed many years ago because it was no longer successful. There was no longer demand. It had parking. It had liquor. It had all varieties of liquor. It was a full liquor store. When we had the Chatham Wine and Provisions next to the Mayflower Shop, we had parking. We had the ability to do it. We had variety. It was a package store with wide different Heinekens and different branded beers and everything else. It was a package store. Gifts were sidelined there. The Squire Shop is a gift shop looking to have a sideline of beer. So we already have 6 package stores that could be servicing this. We're not underserved. Our own liquor regulations stress the need, meet the public need and serve the common good and convenience. It is clear this application, while perhaps well-intended, clearly seeks to circumvent the liquor laws of the town and the state. There's no parking. There's no meeting of public need. It is simply a gift shop looking to sell another branded souvenir items. It does not meet any statutory requirements of a package store. It's not appropriate for this location, and the application should be not denied. We've all been concerned prior to COVID about the challenges of downtown stores with the internet, and Chatham has managed, and the stores are so creative downtown that they're so far winning and keeping up. We've had some new stores come in. We've had a lot of changeover in recent years. But one of the things that's consistent, and has always been consistent, is watching the amount of families that go up and down, the amount of kids that feel like they can go down, the amount of parents that feel their kids are safe downtown. Just imagine the idea that you're going to buy a cold 4-pack at the Chatham shop, and you're going to walk around with it, doing shopping, going into other stores, and go home with warm beer. That's a joke. People are going to do what one of the previous speakers said. They're going to get the beer. You might find them in the park. You might find them in the line at the square. You might find them all over the place, just sitting on a bench. It's not hard to hide a can of beer. It's a bad idea. It's not the character of downtown Chatham, and I really hope you take a stand against this. And I also caution you not to try it and see if it works. This is really circumventing the intent of the package store bylaw and the definitions of what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next speaker is Sandy Wyckoff. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank
You need
you,
to-
Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Good. I have a question and then I have a comment. The first question is, can you tell me exactly what the ruling in Chatham is for open alcoholic beverages outside of restaurant establishments? Are you allowed to have alcohol as you're walking up and down the street? Are restaurants allowed to sell what we used to call a roadie, to-go glass? Is that allowed?
During the COVID operation, you could do the restaurants were allowed to do to-go drinks, or as long as they were packaged up. But that's only during the COVID, one of the COVID mandates that allowed it. So that was just a temporary order. It's my understanding you cannot walk Main Street or anywhere with an open container of alcohol. And Shauna, you can probably speak better to that, as you are our representative of that license.
Sure, that is correct. The only provision was made for restaurants to sell to-go cocktails or beer and wine in sealed containers for take home by takeout customers, but generally it is not permitted. And that provision actually expires on June 15th.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you, Shauna. That was great. I think that really says everything right there. And I should identify the fact that I'm the owner of the Chatham Clothing Bar, which occupies the Epicure building, and I'm the owner of the Epicure building. So based on everything David said, I should be the one applying for a license, and I should have somebody manufacture alcoholic beverages for me under the Epicure name, because I have parking, I have a history of it. So it'll be really interesting for me to see how the ruling is on this, because certainly I'm always looking for additional revenue streams. And I can't imagine that every other store on Main Street would not also hop on the bandwagon if it seemed that that was the direction the town was going. The mix of merchandise that I have had in my store for over 44 years is exactly what the Squire has. The only difference is what I carry doesn't say the Squire on it. I don't really see that this is appropriate unless it's appropriate for everybody. So I would caution about the precedents that it's setting. I'm highly concerned about having cold beer sold that will immediately be opened and consumed on Main Street when there are really strong guidelines and laws in place that prevent that. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing at all. And I wouldn't be surprised that with a precedent like this, that you wouldn't have all of your restaurants wanting to sell and vend to customers for takeout. I'm pretty glad that COVID's over. I think that I probably enjoyed some of the to-go alcohol at the time, but it was more to support the restaurants than it was to consume it on Main Street. So I have a lot of concerns about this. I'm not sure that it's really the direction that we want to go. We are really a family town. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Our next speaker is Elaine Gibbs. Elaine?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to repeat everything that all of the, I think, prior 5 speakers. I absolutely agree with all of it. The application said to provide tourists and visitors wine and brewery options to take home, but clearly the fact that they're only selling cold beer, that's doesn't make any sense to me. It's very confusing, and it's an incredible precedent to send. Every store would have to be granted the same privilege. And we are a family town, and no good can come from it at all. I don't see an upside. So I really hope that you deny this, because they will be opened immediately. And I think the Squire also sells cozies, which would make it even more convenient. The police would never be able to monitor it. There would be no way with cans of beer. So I hope you all vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elaine. Are there any other remote participants that would like to comment on this during this hearing? Please speak out your name or raise your team app's hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any more. So what I'm going to do at this time is we did receive 2 emails. I'm not sure if anybody else received anything, and I'll read them into the record because I have them in my hand. I'm not sure Corey does. Dear Ms. Goldsmith and BOS members, after reading about the Squire Shop applying for a liquor license, we decided to write to you with our objection to your approving this request. We don't understand the logic of going into a gift shop and being able to purchase wine and beer. It's inappropriate and not keeping with our local shops. There are plenty of restaurants and bars in that area where people can go to get an alcoholic beverage. Please reject this request. If you approve of this, we can only imagine the onslaught of additional liquor license applications by others who are not in the restaurant or bar business. Thank you for your consideration. Peggy Sullivan Crespo and Robert Crespo. The other one is, I am writing this letter in opposition to the Squire Shop obtaining a license to sell beer and wine. There is no reason why patrons can't walk across the street to the Squire, Bluefins, or the Wild Goose if they are so inclined to have a drink. Approving this license, in my opinion, sets a bad precedent for all the other retail businesses in Chatham. What will stop folks from taking their drinks out onto the street to continue their shopping? Please deny this. Thank you, Judy Patterson. All right, those were the comments that we got by email. Did anything come in at the last minute, Shauna? I was just checking my emails to see if anything else came in. I don't see anything.
I have not received anything further.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to bring it back to the board, and I'm first going to reiterate a little bit of the questions and my concerns that I had over this. Looking at the 7 criteria that we did receive, the applicant himself said that he wasn't interested in being a package store, yet this is a package store license. And so I think that that is not the sort of operation that, he's saying himself carries the license. It's a souvenir shop, not a package store. In my vision of approving a license for a package store, it would be to a dedicated business that meets all the criteria of parking and all of the that it's an appropriate dedicated operation to sell wine and beer. And so I'm not gonna approve this request at all. But Corey has his hand up, and we'll go around, and then if anybody wants to make a motion, I'm open to that as well. Go ahead, Corey.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'd asked, the question about how would one violation of one, license affect the other license, because they're so clearly connected to these sinister connection with the 2 businesses. But I don't think these concerns about having a cold beer on Main Street are very far-fetched. I truly don't. And I think sometimes, I respect the concept of why they'd want to ask for this, but sometimes we need to kind of help, we need to help protect our, our own. Sorry, I'm blanking on the words I want to come up with, but basically, if something were to happen, in the vein of these concerns, and it would jeopardize the license of the Squire establishment itself, the tavern and the bar, the risk reward just clearly is not there. So I mean, as an advisor, if Mr. Hurl's advisor, I would caution him to consider that. So. But I do think the comments that have been made by the public are very valid. I can see other people stepping forward and saying, I want to do this wine or this beer, and it's not far-fetched to consider the people jumping on the bandwagon. So I'm very reluctant to grant this request, especially this year. It's if there was a way to in the future that we could be very narrow and we could allow X amount of licenses for the downtown for a certain narrow sale of beer and wine, that's a discussion much further down the road. But under the current circumstances and current criteria, I'm extremely reluctant to support this. So thank you.
Thanks. Dean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I read the court case, as I understand what the court was saying, the licensing board, namely us, can deny a license based on any one or more of these 7 criteria. And the 2 that jump out to me of relevance and concern are the views of the inhabitants of the locality in which the license is sought and the sort of operation that carries the license. So we heard tonight, and we had the emails from a number of people, all of whom were opposed to this. And while the court says that you don't deal with these license applications as a plebiscite, I do find that the comments of the public are relevant and informative on what we see as the locality of downtown Main Street. And with respect to the type of operation, the sort of operation that carries the license, as has been suggested, this is really not, it's not a food and beverage store, unlike the Chatham Village Market or the former Chatham Organic Market, where we did approve a license so they could sell different wines for a period of time there. This is really a souvenir / apparel shop. And I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of awarding a beer and wine license for that location. If this were an application for a pure package store, as the Epicure was, and the other store that was, I've forgotten the name, next to the Mayflower, that easier. So I can't approve this request, and I say that with some sadness, because as Jeff said earlier, I do want to support our downtown businesses, but as we've had 3 downtown business owners tonight tell us they don't think this is a good idea. So I don't think I'm erring on the wrong side on this one. So for the reasons that I have articulated, I cannot support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, fellow select board members. And I thank Sandy and David, Marianne, and also Todd for bringing the issue forward. I am not going to support this application at all. I think it isn't, it would open a Pandora's box with the rest of the retail establishments in our downtown and elsewhere in town. I think the location is inappropriate to sell cold beer that could possibly be opened in the street, and it's just not the right ambiance for the downtown area. Warm beer with sales closing at 5 p.m. maybe, but not as presented. And I'm very reluctant to vote unless this is a full scale package store. Location inappropriate. The sentiment of the surrounding businesses was very much opposed, and the hours of operation are inappropriate. So I am not going to support the application. Thank you. And to that, I'll move to deny, or if you want a positive, I'll move to approve, and then we can all vote our way. So I move to approve the application.
Do I have a second? Peter, you need to unmute yourself to second.
Sorry, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Peter, do you want to continue the conversation?
Yeah, Madam Chair, and everyone said exactly what I was thinking in a number of concerns. My first concern when I first spoke about it was the type of business that it was going to be part of. As I understand it, we have one liquor license or package store liquor license, and it seems inappropriate to put it into just a retail store that's selling souvenirs and branded souvenirs. And I think what was most important, or what we heard from the public, and the whole idea of how we're going to manage it through the town. We are a small town. We are a family-friendly town. It just doesn't fit within the character of Chatham to have something like this. I would have no problem with opening another package store like Epicure was, or something else. And if that's a good business case for downtown, then it'll survive. In any case, I agree with the rest of the board. Thank you.
Okay, Dean, your hand's back up. You have further comments.
Yeah, I have a question about the motion, and maybe Shauna can shed some light. I don't think town council is on the call, but again, we're supposed to recite the reasons why we deny a license, because it could go up on appeal. And we've all expressed some of the same reasons, and some have expressed other reasons. I'm talking about the board. So I don't know how this should be framed, or how the report that is submitted to the ABCC is going to be written. Shauna, have we denied licenses before, and what have we said? However we framed the vote?
Shauna?
Sure, Madam, through you, the board is obligated, if you deny an application or modify or suspend or revoke another license, to submit a written statement of reasons to the licensee and the ABCC, and send a right of repeal notice to the licensee. So I think the motion is appropriate to deny, and based on your conversation, I can certainly draft that written statement of reasons for review by the board.
Does that come back to us for approval? When does the denial become effective?
The right of appeal notice to the applicant is sent 5 days from the board's, 5 business days from the board's decision. So it wouldn't make it onto the next agenda, but I could certainly circulate to the chair for approval.
So the denial would be effective tonight if we vote.
Correct.
I'm frozen. Can you hear me?
Okay.
The
Yes,
denial would be effective tonight. So may I offer an amendment to Jeff's motion?
Yes, and I think Jeff has his hand up too, Dean, so go ahead.
Go ahead,
I would,
Dean.
I would offer the amendment to add that the denial is based on the reasons specified by members of the board this evening, consistent with the standard that is set forth, consistent with the legal standard.
Okay, are you okay with that amendment, Peter? Jeff?
Yes.
Brett,
I'm Jeff
and Jeff?
first.
Jeff?
Yeah, my only comment was I did frame the motion as approval. I moved to approve. I don't know if we're comfortable with that, and we'd vote against, obviously. But would also make as part of the motion that Shauna's summary would be reviewed by legal counsel, by town council.
Okay, all right. All right.
I didn't hear.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Wait, I've got everybody talking at me. Dean, go ahead, and then Peter.
I didn't hear the last part because of my connectivity problem here, what Jeff just said.
Jeff would like it. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I just want Shauna's response to her summary to be reviewed by town council. That's all.
Okay, are you comfortable with the language that, I guess the amendment was included, but your motion was in the affirmative?
It was in the affirmative. I'll change my motion if you want to move to deny, if that's what you'd like to do. I don't mean to make it confusing.
I think that's consistent in what we have been speaking about, and I'd prefer it to be in a motion to deny.
Okay, then I would like to move to deny the application for a package store license at that location.
With the amendment that I offered.
Correct.
Thank you.
And Peter?
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
Okay, all right. Before we move forward, is there any final comments from Mr. Hurl before we take our vote?
No, I mean, not really. I respect everyone's opinion. I understand, I understand, why people would be hesitant. So I understand.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take a vote then. Dean?
Yes.
Yes. Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. So the application has been denied, and a letter will go forth. Shauna will pen a letter with approval from town council. Thank you very much. All right, this concludes our public hearing, and we're going to move into our new business. Thank you, Mr. Hurl. All right.
Yes, you're
our
welcome,
new,
Madam Chair.
okay. Our new business is new common victualers license for Sweet Dreams Ice Cream Shop at 1579 Main Street. And I think that that's a with hold on. Yes, 1579 Main Street. Give me a second. Looking for my packet. Shauna, do you have an overview of that, or is that you, or?
Sure. This is a new ice cream shop in West Chatham. State requires under Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 6 and Section 20, establishments with the necessary implements and facilities for cooking, preparing, and serving food for strangers and travelers. They need to have a common victualer's license. It's pretty common. It's a $5 fee, which has been paid.
Okay, great. And this is for Dan Meservey, who is the applicant. Do we have any, go ahead, Jeff, your hand's up. Why don't we just move forward?
Yeah,
Jeff?
thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the application for a common victualer's license by Dan Meservey for Sweet Dreams Ice Cream, 1579 Main Street, West Chatham.
Do we have a second?
Second, Peter.
Any further discussion? Corey, your hand's up.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna share, as someone who share, also holds a common vic license, these exorbitant fees are, we're gonna have to sell ice cream to cover the cost. So, we might want to look at that down the road. But no, I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this.
Okay. All right. Before we take a vote, out of courtesy, just are the applicants here or on in the meeting? Would they like to say anything? All right. I'm not hearing anybody. Okay. All right. Let's take a vote. Corey.
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. So the motion passed 5-0-0. Good luck with the ice cream shop. All right. Now we're getting a little feedback. All right. So our next is the property acquisition. We've been working on negotiations on this. And this is property for Article 18 at annual town meeting to acquire and dispose of property at 0 and 1533 Main Street for affordable and attainable housing. And Katie, our Director of Community Development, is making a presentation for us. Katie.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to just share my screen so I can bring up the property for everybody to see. So again, if you'll recall, the town issued a request for proposals for purchase of private real property suitable for the use of attainable and affordable housing in September of 2020. One of the responses that we received was from the property owners at 0 and 1533 Main Street. And through the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust, the town manager entered into negotiations with the property owners. At the time of this report, we do have a preliminary agreement on price, and that price is for $1,375,000. The property, as you'll see up on the screen, if you can see here, I've outlined it in red, consists of two parcels, again at 0, where my cursor is here now, and then 1533 Main Street. The property owners have requested to retain a 20,000 square foot parcel that would include the main dwelling up in this area, the northwest frontage corner of the property. So the total area for the purchase would be approximately 110,464 square feet, or 2.53 acres. And again, with the agreed upon price, we're asking the board and the trust tonight to make a determination about the percentages that they'd like to move forward with for a request for town meeting as to whether we provided a report in your packet looking at the options for 50% affordable, 50% attainable, 25% affordable and 75% attainable and vice versa. However, at this time, staff is respectfully requesting that the board consider funding this acquisition with 50% funds from free cash, which would be $687,500, and also $687,500 from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Katie, for the presentation. We've been working on this this project for a little while now, and excited to bring it to town meeting. And I think that when we look at the West Chatham area, this project with a proposal of affordable and attainable housing is a nice complement to the West Chatham Village that we hope to see starting to become more enhanced. A nice neighborhood of homes where people can live would be a real asset to the neighborhood. I'm just going to throw it out for some comments from the board, and then as well as this is an issue. The funding is an issue for the trust because we would be using trust fund money. So Corey has his hand up first, and then we'll move forward. Go ahead, Corey.
Just one simple question. We've gone through this particular parcel quite a bit, a lot of discussions. But for the benefit of the board and the public and everything, which option would be more give us more ability for local preference? And that's my question.
Through the chair, I think that we're certainly going to speak to local. Sorry, getting some feedback. We're certainly going to speak to local preference a bit more later in the presentation. However, the town can request up to 70% local preference of the affordable units. I don't know, again, that wouldn't necessarily be the case for the attainable units. So again, the town can request up to 70%, and we would have to demonstrate a local need on that basis of that request that we would make.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to just make one comment first, and then talk to what Corey had. You know, the select board over the past year, actually it started 3 years ago. We have a set of articles that are in now, and I've been asked, okay, how come all of a sudden we put these articles out? Well, it's not just that we just put them out. We have a strategic set of articles that we're proposing that aggressively addresses the real issue that we have, which are housing needs. And our housing needs are not just affordable; they're attainable. And if you look at the chart that's in our package at what salaries we're talking about, you know, you could get up to a $96,000 salary, but you have to have a family of 4 to be affordable. You are one dime over that or $1 over that, then you have no support. There is nothing that addresses attainable housing. And if you make a $163,000 house, you can afford a house that's worth about $600,000 here in town. What's our average cost of our houses here? That's up over $800,000. It's a mean, I guess, over 800, maybe even $900,000. So we have a critical crisis. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And I know we all argue about one little piece of property or not. We don't agree. But the point is, we need land. If you want to control what's going to happen here as far as affordable housing or any kind of housing, we have to own it. We have some that's municipal, and we have some that we're buying. So that basically, I think, it comes from me as we need a property like this. And where do you put affordable and attainable housing? Well, a neighborhood center is the first place to put it. And another area is if you have surrounding open land and lots of trees. If you could have density, you could have a lovely place to do that. I've seen arguments that say, well, there's no services at this area, or there are different kind of services. People that are here are making anywhere from lower income, but they're all working and they're all looking to have a place to live in Chatham. Otherwise, we become, as we've heard, a museum. The point about, local preference, if you look at all what other towns are doing, they're just doing affordable housing, as far as I can tell. They're not really getting into a lot of attainable housing, with the exception of attainable housing that's tied sort of to their affordable housing, and it's all a small percent, like 25%. So we need more of both, and I think we can make a strong case, given our market, that we can have local preference. The problem, not a problem, the way I see it is local preference says we're going to go to the people and have them have a preference to have this housing. And that's what we should do. But guess what, folks? A lot of them have already left. And if we can get them back, that ought to be part of our process also. So I think this is a super opportunity, and it's in a great location, and it makes a lot of sense. Sorry about the long dissertation, but I had to say it sometime. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Peter. Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Sharina. I very much support the purchase of this property. We've been working on this particular piece of property with Katie and Jill and Shireen and others, and going back and forth with the Buckley family. And it's a wonderful location, almost inside the village center itself, defined by the Rotaries, but across from the Habitat for Humanity homes. It's on town sewer, it's on town water. We can do an absolutely beautiful development there for affordable and attainable housing. So I'm excited about this potential purchase. Looking forward to town meeting weighing in. I know it seems as though this is late in the game for town meeting, but we've been working. There's been a placeholder in the warrant ever since we started to plan the warrant. Hoping to get it nailed down with a price that we thought acceptable and to present to the town. And the break between affordable and attainable, I think I kind of land with the recommendation 50-50, unless I hear other arguments that might sway me. I would vote for the 50-50 split, to recommend that to the town meeting so that we get a good mix of affordable and attainable going forward. So I hope we can actually consummate this deal after we get approval from town meeting, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful piece of property for the town.
Thanks, Jeff. Dean?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this proposal as well. I think it's a solid location for all the reasons that have been mentioned, and which I won't repeat. I do think it's far preferable to have housing on this property of affordable or attainable nature than to let it be sold and turned into a couple of McMansions, for example. I do also support the 50-50 split as read out. Just a comment on the attainable housing. Katie, I know we're going to talk about this later. I'm not sure, I don't know whether there is any standard or requirement that applies to attainable housing for local preference. It would seem to me that if you're building only attainable housing in a given location, you can do whatever you want. You can attach whatever local preference you can, but I don't know that to be the case legally, and I would just ask that that be clarified in time for Saturday's town meeting with town council. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dean. Trustee Bruce Bean, do you have any comments on this as in respect to the funding scenarios at all? I don't know if he's still here. Did we lose him? We might have lost him. I'm in favor of the 50-50 split. It was explained to us earlier that, there was a question that was raised about, if we took $687,500, 50% of the purchase price from free cash, that the remainder would be free cash in the town's coffers were $731,000 and change. And we asked Alex, and I think she might be able to reiterate to us whether that's a healthy balance to be able to maintain the free cash scenario. So Alex, if you wanted to just reiterate what you might have said in our executive session when we asked you the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. it's prudent to carry over an amount of free cash from one year to the next to have a good, healthy balance. And 731,000 is a sufficient balance moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Corey, you have your hand up again. Do you want to make a motion?
I'm ready.
Go right ahead. Okay.
I move that the board vote to acquire 0 and 1533 Main Street for affordable and attainable housing with 50% of funds from free cash in the amount of $687,500 and 50% of funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in the amount of $687,500, and to further vote to recommend Article 18 to the 2021 annual town meeting.
Okay, I'll accept a second on that, but I think I need some clarification because do we not have to vote as the trust on the funding piece of it? And so I think, can you separate that out accordingly?
I will withdraw the last part of that motion.
Okay, so, and then reiterate that it requests the trust fund trustees. Okay, you have a second? Did I get a second? Okay, second from Dean.
So this vote is a vote of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Trustees, yes. Unfortunately, I don't know if Bruce is still on and Megan's Story is unavailable, so it might be a moot point, but I think we still have to do it and we do have a quorum. So I think that that's appropriate avenue to go. All right, so let's take a vote. Corey.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
Chair says aye. I'm just going to ask again, Bruce Bean. Okay, there is no Bruce, and Megan's not available. So the motion moves 5-0, and then 2 absent. All right. Motion to recommend Article 18 by the Select Board. So moved. This is a vote to recommend Article 18 on the 2020 annual town meeting warrant, just to read it out. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote. Corey?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye, and the understanding is that these numbers are going to be included in the presentation on Saturday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair says aye. All right, motion is carried. Thank you. Great, we're going to move to another that is a review of the annual town meeting housing articles. And next steps, we have Laura Schufelt, Director of Community Assistance for Mass Housing Partnership, and Katie Donovan. Welcome, Ms. Schufelt, and Katie's going to kick us off, I believe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, happy to have Laura Schufelt with us tonight, along with Ali Sabatino, our principal planner. Laura's available to go through some of the questions that we've been asked recently. I just have a quick question just with this new Teams. I'm wondering if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay.
We can see the PowerPoint presentation if that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great.
Thank you. So just as if I may, Madam Chair, I think that Select Board Member Kokolas had provided a little bit of background, but there's just if you'll indulge me for a moment, I just would like to give a little bit of background, for the viewers and for the citizens. So the Select Board has identified a community goal to address the lack of affordable and attainable housing in Chatham, which significantly affects the health, economy, and retention of generational and young families in town. Chatham's 2018 Housing Production Plan identifies the needs and provides strategies to help meet that goal. The Housing Production Plan emphasizes the decline in population in Chatham, especially in the 18 to 44-year-old demographic. The Chatham 365 Task Force was created by the Select Board to identify the problem and help the town shift its policies and planning to help preserve the character in the heart of the town. Many of the recommendations of the Chatham 365 Task Force align with the goals of the Housing Production Plan and identify ways to attract and retain more year-round residents to create a more vibrant, thriving year-round community. The creation of both affordable and attainable homeownership and rental options will move these goals forward. While a major goal of the housing production plan is to eventually meet the state's 10% affordability threshold under Chapter 40B, another important goal is to serve the full range of local housing needs. Consequently, there are instances where housing initiatives might be promoted to meet community needs that will not necessarily result in the inclusion of units on the Subsidized Housing Inventory, or SHI. The plan also states that even though a community has a very high level of home ownership, there would be a public benefit to the town to promote opportunities for newer and younger households to purchase a home, obtain a good job, and establish roots in Chatham. A wider range of affordable housing options is needed for these younger households entering the job market and forming their own families, as well as municipal employees, other town employees, and seniors looking to downsize. However, community preservation funds and affordable housing trust funds can only be used to fund projects up to 100% area median income. And Chatham is also in need of housing options for citizens that qualify for housing up to 200% area median income. For fiscal year 2020, the 100% area median income in Barnstable County for a family of 4 is $96,600. And the 200% area median income for a family of 4 is $193,200. The average sale price of a single family home in Chatham in February of 2021 was over $1.7 million, putting home ownership well out of the reach for many. It's also worth mentioning that we recently learned that the AMI for Barnstable County has decreased for fiscal year 2021. The AMI is now $89,300 for a family of 4, and the 200% area median income is now $178,600 for a family of 4. Town staff have worked with the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees on initiatives that will help to create more affordable and attainable housing options. And Town of Chatham staff and volunteer housing advocates also meet regularly with their colleagues on Cape Cod, especially those on the Lower Cape, to discuss ideas and strategies that increase housing opportunities. The following articles are a culmination of some of those efforts. Allie and I will give a brief overview of the articles and be available to answer questions. And also joining us tonight, as previously mentioned, is Laura Schutfeld, the Director of Community Assistance from Mass Housing Partnership. So with that, I'll get right into the articles that we will see on the warrant. These are the articles that were presented by the town. So Article 18, as we just discussed, would be to acquire and dispose of property at 0 and 1533 Main Street for affordable and attainable housing. As discussed, the identification and development of private parcels that are suitable for housing development is a key strategy in the 2018 Housing Production Plan. The town solicited acquisition proposals from private property owners through a request for proposal process. And the property owners of 0 and 1533 Main Street responded to the town's RFP. The proposed land acquisition consists of 2 lots, 1533 and 0 Main Street. The applicant has requested a 20,000 square foot lot be created and retained at the westerly frontage corner of 1533 Main Street, which includes the main dwelling. With the exclusion of the 20,000 square feet from the total land area, the combined total area of the 2 parcels in West Chatham are 110,464 square feet, or 2.53 acres. The property is zoned R20 and has town sewer available. The agreed upon purchase price of these 2 parcels, exclusive of the 20,000 square feet, is $1,375,000. To purchase this property for affordable and attainable housing, a mix of funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and free cash are needed, as the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can fund projects for affordable housing purposes only. So as previously discussed in the last agenda item and just voted, the total purchase price is $1,375,000 and will be funded 50% from free cash and 50% from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Article 19 is to declare as surplus and designate and dispose of the town-owned Middle Road property for affordable and attainable housing. As you'll recall, the Community Housing Partnership recommended that the Select Board declare the entire approximate 19-acre parcel surplus for housing. The Housing Production Plan highlights this approximate 19-acre town-owned property to the north of Middle Road as a parcel that would be suitable for housing development. And if you'll see here, in the dark yellow is the entire 19 area that's being discussed. The property is owned municipal, and though town sewer is not currently available, it could possibly be extended to the property. It's also important to note that the town has received a $50,000 Housing Choice Small Town Capital Grant to conduct a feasibility on this Middle Road property. And this feasibility study is currently underway. So just a little bit more about the Middle Road property. You'll see in the red highlighted areas the approximate location of possible development. And the reason that we're identifying these two areas is that there's some topography issues and wetlands on the property that we are looking to stay away from. You'll also note that in this area here, it's approximately 70 feet, and over here approximately 60 feet area of a buffer that we've designated to give a buffer to the neighboring properties. And let's see. So we've identified those parcels of land for housing, and with that, the town has engaged with Judy Barrett from Barrett Planning Group that if these articles 18 and 19 are approved at the annual town meeting, Barrett Planning Group, along with town staff, will conduct a series of community outreach meetings scheduled to be held after town meeting to hear from the community, as it's a town goal to have a community-driven process so that the proposed housing units are in line with the community's needs. Article 20 is special legislation, a home rule petition for a new housing trust to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court for special legislation to create one housing trust for both affordable up to 100% area median income and attainable up to 200% area median income. The current affordable housing trust can only fund projects up to 100% of the area median income, whereas the town of Chatham is in need of both affordable and attainable housing to keep our generational young and working families in Chatham. For fiscal year 2020, the 100% area median income for Barnstable County, as previously discussed for a family of four, is $96,600, and the 200% area median income is $193,200. As I previously stated, we recently received the FY 2021 AMI for Barnstable County, and again, it has decreased to $89,300 for a family of four and $178,600 for a family of four at the 200% area median income. So the creation of one trust with two funding sources will be able to better serve the needs of the community by building upon our current affordable housing trust, which was established by town meeting in 2006. Should the legislation be approved, guidelines and an application package similar to the current affordable housing trust will be established. Article 21 is special legislation and a home rule petition for a community housing fee, a real estate transfer fee for affordable and attainable housing. And this article is to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court for special legislation to authorize imposition of a fee upon the transfer of real property situated in the town to provide a supplemental source of funding to create and preserve affordable and attainable housing. Though we have a dedicated funding source for the creation of affordable housing, the town does not currently have a dedicated funding source for much needed attainable housing, and this fee would help to provide that funding. Affordable Housing Trust funds appropriated from Community Preservation Act funds can only be used for affordable housing projects up to 100% area median income. The additional funds generated by the proposed transfer fee would allow the Affordable Housing Trust and/or the proposed Chatham Housing Trust to fund attainable housing projects up to 200% AMI. The real property transfer fee is equal to 0.5% of the purchase price paid upon the transfer of any real property interest for consideration of $2 million or more, and the fee shall be paid by and be the liability of the purchaser. Certain transfers would be exempt from this requirement, including intra-family transfers. This fee shall be a 10-year duration from the date this legislation takes effect and may continue for additional 5-year periods upon a majority vote of town meeting, a reauthorization of the fee. The fee may be decreased or increased. The qualifying threshold transfer amount may be revised, or the fee may be eliminated by 2/3 vote of town meeting. Article 22, also special legislation, a home rule petition for CPA funding for attainable housing. And this is to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court for special legislation authorizing the use of community preservation funds for both affordable and attainable housing for persons and families whose annual income is less than 200%, less than 200% of the area median income. The current CPA statute only allows CPA funds to be used to fund projects for persons and families whose annual income is less than 100% AMI. An authorization of CPA funds used for efforts to create housing for persons and families within the 200% AMI income limit would help the town of Chatham create both types of housing opportunities to help keep our generational young and working families in Chatham. Article 33 is a Community Preservation Act funding article, and this is in regard to the housing coordinator. In order to advance affordable housing initiatives in town, to enhance the capability of the Chatham Community Housing Partnership, previously known as the Affordable Housing Committee, and forward the goals of the local comprehensive plan, the expertise of a housing specialist was recognized as a need. A contract was awarded in December of 2018 to the Community Development Partnership, and in June 2020, that contract was again awarded to the CDP. The town is requesting $30,000 to continue this contract. The housing coordinator supports services for housing-related programs and affordable housing initiatives, such as the most recent emergency rental assistance program created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The housing coordinator worked with the Chatham Housing Authority, Monomoy Community Services, and the Housing Assistance Corporation to ensure residents are receiving the necessary assistance. The efforts of the coordinator have been instrumental in outreach and support to Chatham residents and moving housing solutions forward in Chatham. Article 34 is also a Community Preservation Act funding for a housing feasibility study. So we spoke earlier of the Affordable Housing Trust is considering the purchase of property using town-owned property for affordable and attainable housing. A feasibility study determines if any potential development hurdles exist, will help to determine the number of potential units that the property can support, and may develop concept plans for the town's consideration. And the town is requesting $50,000 to conduct this study. Article 35, the CPA allocation to the Affordable Housing Trust. And the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was created by town meeting in 2006 and is administered by the select board and 2 appointed trustees. This request would add to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund balance, which allows the town to respond to opportunities in the housing market in a time-sensitive and efficient manner, not having to wait for a future town meeting approval. The proposed appropriation to the Affordable Housing Trust for this year is $1 million. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen now. We've come up with some frequently asked questions, and I think that I will ask Laura Schufelt from the Mass Housing Partnership to join me in this conversation. Again, as these articles have been discussed throughout the community, we've had a number of questions come in. And so one of the questions really had a lot to do with local preference. And so I'd like to invite Laura to speak to just to speak to the local preference. So, as we develop these properties, will the town be able to request local preference? and basically what that process would be. So if I could welcome Laura to the discussion. Oh, I think you're on.
Sorry. Madam Chair, with your permission. Again, I'm Laura Schufelt, from the Director of Community Assistance from Mass Housing Partnership. I'm also a Cape Cod native and live in West Barnstable. So I know the Cape and Chatham well, have worked in Chatham for the development. Now I'm forgetting forgetting the name of it, the development next to the Housing Authority years ago. Anyway, local preference. So the town can request local preference for the affordable units up to 70% of the affordable units. And the definition of local preference, I'm not sure if that's been discussed, is a resident of the town, someone who works for the town or whose business works for a business that is based in the town, or someone whose child goes to school in the town. So you can request local preference, as I said, for 70% of the affordable units. The kind of requirement is that you show a need. You need to show demographics that show that you have a need for the affordable units, and that there isn't a disparate impact on any protected class. So if they're, so that you have you're not doing housing that would prevent families with children, for example, unless it's age restricted, and then that's okay. Or that there wouldn't be an opportunity for minorities to participate. But in most cases, you can, towns, especially on the Cape, can demonstrate the need. People who are rent burdened, if they're paying more than 30% of their income for rent, then that's considered rent burdened, and that would show need. Or homeowners who are paying more than 30% or would have to pay more than 30% of their income in order to buy a home in Chatham. For the attainable units, there isn't a strict, sign off from the state like there would be for the affordable units. However, you have to be careful not to violate fair housing laws, and in the same way with the affordables, and that you couldn't have 100% local preference, for example, because that would most likely have a disparate impact on protected classes.
Thank you, Laura. Through the chair, if I may, just if it's okay that I continue with the questions through Laura, to Laura, through you, if that's okay.
That's fine. Dean has his hand up, and I was hoping that you'd, if you'd like to ask that question now, it would be appropriate.
I had a question on local preference, and I was wondering if, since we do have an expert on available, if the number of, and I'm talking affordable, if the number of units is limited to 1 or 2, have local preference in either of those circumstances?
You could have local preference for one of the 2, but not for just one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, please continue. Allie has her hand up, so maybe Allie can. Allie.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to point out as well that we do have a needs assessment study that is in our housing production plan. So I just wanted to point that out as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie.
Thank you, Allie. So I just wanted to confirm that the timing for a municipality to request local preference would be after a comprehensive permit is issued. Is that correct?
Yes, in the case of the project is being permitted with a comprehensive permit, then the town would request it. The guidelines say within 3 months of the permit being issued. Basically, that's it being final. So if it's appeal, it goes through the appeal process before you would do it. And if it's not a comprehensive permit, if it's, I don't know if you have inclusionary, I don't think you do, but if you had other methods of requiring affordable, then it would be at the time that you were requesting the state to count the units on your subsidized housing inventory.
Thank you. Another question that was asked related to deed restrictions for affordable housing and whether or not they're now required to be in perpetuity. And I was wondering if you could confirm that that is the case.
So the deed restrictions for homeownership units, they're not required to be in perpetuity, but it's always done. It's it's up to the town how long the process is. It's allowed to be perpetual, so most towns have it perpetual, and the universal deed rider is unique in that it survives foreclosure. So it's perpetual and it survives foreclosure, so they will always be affordable.
Dean has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question about deed restrictions. So you're probably familiar, Laura, with our Chop House
Yes.
community. So there's obviously been concern because some of these properties are no longer subject to the restriction because of the inability to get have a purchaser who can meet the criteria. Is it permissible would it be permissible for the town to purchase deed restrictions? In other words, to go to a property where it's about to expire, or to approach another property where it already has expired and has been sold, and offer to and negotiate the purchase of a deed restriction?
That is, except that's done in many cases. In order for it to, if it's one that hasn't expired yet or hasn't been sold out, then it would remain on the subsidized housing inventory. If you were just going to offer someone, cash for a deed restriction, it would only be on turnover that it would count, which is probably not what you're looking. If that's important to you, that's the distinction between the two. But yes, you can do that. I will also say that in the case of the universal deed rider, if someone can't be found to buy it, the restriction stays on, and a ineligible person can buy it, but the restriction is still on, so it stays affordable for the next buyer.
Thanks very much.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, Laura, just as far as a deed restriction for an attainable house, would that be available to be in perpetuity as well?
I have seen some that are in perpetuity. However, unlike the universal deed rider, it would not survive foreclosure because that's like a special deal that we made with the secondary market. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have agreed to the deed restriction, the universal deed rider, but that only is for the affordables because the state DHCD has to sign off on it. So it would be perpetual except for that. The other way that I've seen it carry on is if the deed rider is 40 years. That used to be what it was prior to allowing perpetual. It would be 40 years, but any refinance or sale, and it would re-up. So the 40 years would start over again. And so that kept it affordable for, unless somebody kept it for more than 40 years.
Great, thank you. Thank you for clarification. So, and I apologize for going back to local preference, but I just wanted to clarify from a standpoint of a rental. So we can, if we establish a program and we have not just home ownership, but rentals, the local preference can only be on the initial lease up for that, for the local preference. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's only at the initial because through the lottery, which is how the tenants and owners are picked, but in rentals for the tenants, there's oversight on the pool of buyers on the renters and the wait list that started, and that doesn't have the oversight going forward. So in order to make sure that there isn't any disparate impact again, it's really the fair housing, rules come in here. Then they only have the local preference at the beginning, and then the wait list is made from all the local preference and the open pool together. To just a quick kind of a little bit in the weeds, in a lottery, for local preferences, there's two pools, the local residents and then the open pool. The local residents are picked first, and then everyone that is in the local pool goes into the open pool. So they get two shots at it. So oftentimes the local preference becomes more than 70% because more of them are in the open pool. And then from the open pool is the wait list. And so it's a mix of the two. And then people are added to the bottom of that list as it gets, shorn down.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. And so if I come to the board, the only other question that we had been asked is whether or not guidelines would be created for the new housing trust. And I wanted to assure folks that would be the case, is that if that legislation was approved, we would create guidelines in an application package that would resemble what the Affordable Housing Trust currently has. And so that was the only other question that we had received. And again, we could open it up to questions from the board if there are other questions, but we wanted to at least provide those answers to the questions that we had heard from the community at this point.
Thank you, Katie, for the overview, and Laura for the explanations on the local preference. That was pretty helpful and insightful. So I'm just going to turn it into the board to see if there's any questions. Jeff?
Yeah, I thought that was excellent. A great overview. Really appreciate it. I think that, given the potential investments we're asking the town to make at town meeting and beyond, I think it's very important that we articulate very clearly what the difference and what the nuances are of affordable versus attainable housing, number one. And number two, how we can ensure kind of how to maximize, if you will, our local preference so that we do get a return on our rather sizable investments we're asking the town to make. So I think it's important that we have the ability, both at town meeting and beyond, to be able to just articulate what Laura just did in as simple way as we possibly can, both for purchase and for rentals. I think there are kind of two different approaches there. Were both attractive, and so I just learned a lot. And I think that the town really is going to be asking the same questions that they've been asking all along, and they're likely to do so again at town meeting. But that was excellent. I think the summary was excellent. I really appreciated it. Appreciate it in the package as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Peter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just echo what Jeff said. I mean, it was a great presentation. All of you were just super. There is a lot of information there. There's a certain amount of misinformation that's out in the public and questions. One question that always comes up, at least some of the people I've been talking to, is, you mean to tell me you're going to spend 200% over the area mean income to subsidize people, subsidize housing when they're making those huge salaries. And when you start talking over $100,000 or $150,000, I think it's important to point out that if you make $150,000, you still can't live here. And maybe putting a number on that would help. I mean, I've seen a couple, but and it's my math that does it. But
Can you hold on just a second, Peter? We're getting a lot of background noise. I don't know if somebody's walking or what, but could we have folks please mute their mics so that we can better hear the speakers? Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you.
Sorry to
Madam Chair.
interrupt you.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, what the way it was presented, you just did a wonderful job, and I agree that rentals are also important. They provide opportunity, and we talk about our housing needs. If you're in one and you happen to inherit one, that's one thing. If you're relatively new and you're young, it's almost impossible. So a good rental would be nice. That's why we need rentals. But in any case, I'm preaching to the choir. Anyway, thank you very much, and that was just great. Thank you,
Great,
Madam Chair.
thanks. All right, thank you, Peter. Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I appreciate this overview. Yes, there's a whole lot of topics and pieces of this puzzle that we're putting forth to town meeting. This is the aggressive approach we need to take. We clearly have a housing need. You know, there's a lot of questions out there. I hope people who still have questions on some of these articles, you know, can reach out to us or any appropriate other party and get those questions answered prior to Saturday. But this is the aggressive approach that we need to take. Frankly, we're in that position right now. I think it's a very balanced approach. And I hope people, you know, come out on Saturday and vote to support these, because now's the time. We've got to move these things forward, and we've got to, you know, really put the gas pedal down and start thinking about our future. And these are the right steps. So I thank you, and I look forward to some positive votes on Saturday.
Thanks, Corey. Carolyn McClellan has her hand up, and she's the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee. And if you have a question as that representative, Carolyn, I'll allow you to speak.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just had a question about local preference, and I get this asked quite a bit. I know we make an allowance for if they attend school. So my question is, and what people ask me, does that mean, like in our case, so is that Chatham Elementary School and middle school? Is it if they go to Monomoy District? So if somebody lived out of town and their kid went to school at middle school, they qualify, but if the kid went to school at high school, they wouldn't? How is it the school defined in local preference?
Laura?
I'll try. If it's a regional school, and forgive me, I don't know which towns. I know it. You know, you have Monomoy with Harwich, but I don't know where the schools are. It's wherever the school is. So if the middle school is in Chatham, then anyone who goes to the middle school would be eligible. If the high school's in Harwich, then only the people who came from Chatham would be. As I understand it, it's not really well defined in the guidelines.
Okay, that's an interesting concept, because that speaks a little bit to some of the regional need, or could help satisfy some of the regional need if you looked in a bigger, broader approach, because you know, we have a lot of regional partnerships that are going on within our communities, and I expect we'll probably see more down the road. I just I feel this board and staff have, you know, really taken as Peter said, the last 3 years, and there's been a lot of insight into you know, where we are. But you know, I just want to note that our needs assessment was done back 2-3 years ago, 2018 or 19, Allie. I can't recall. I always get the 2 years mixed up.
2018.
Thank you. And so 3 years ago, a lot has changed, especially in this town, and COVID hasn't helped it. I really feel we're at a pivotal time to really start turning a different path and a road in a direction that's really going to support, a more diverse community and opportunity for people that want to live and work here. So I'm really, really excited to get us to town meeting, and I really appreciate all the work that everybody has done to get us there. I'm excited for what we can be doing for our community. Is there any other comments from the board before we move on? All right. Okay, well, thank you, Laura, for your time this evening. Appreciate it. And Allie and Katie, thank you very much. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our Orleans Adult Daycare Memorandum of Agreement is next, and that is with Mandy, who's going to give us a little bit of an explanation of where we're at. Mandy, welcome. Thank you for waiting. It's 8:30.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So good evening, everyone. No problem. The Orleans Day program is a social or supportive day model, and the town of Chatham has engaged in an intermunicipal agreement or a memorandum of agreement with the town of with the town of Orleans since 2016 to preserve the access to this program for Chatham residents. At this time, the only towns that the Orleans program is accepting are from Chatham, Harwich, Brewster, and Orleans. So the renewal of this MOA will continue to provide access to this day program. And just a quick COVID update. With the reopening of this program in the last few weeks, they have taken advantage of the opportunity to sort of reset and renew, and they are now known as the Rock Harbor Respite Program, and that is to reflect the change in service and the change in how the program has changed over the decades. And so once a social day program was truly meant to come and socialize with peers, it really has moved over the years toward providing much needed respite for caregivers. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, so tonight you're asking us to enter into the memorandum of agreement as requested by the town to continue the access to the program. So any questions? Peter?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mandy. Nice speaking with you again. You received an email and a question that we all got to see that had to do with how many people are how many Chatham residents are involved with using the care program. Would you just reiterate for the public what you told her? I think it's informative.
Sure. So with the reopening of the program, they're adhering to best practices for settings that serve vulnerable populations. So pre-COVID, the program was able to serve 18 clients per day and maintain a safe client-staff ratio. Under these new pandemic guidelines, the current census is down to 7 clients per day. So the way they've restructured the program for now is that all previous families and clients were invited to come back to the program, and they were all invited to participate 1 day per week as of now. And so the Orleans COA reached out to us, the Chatham COA, and made sure that we were able to work together to accommodate any Chatham clients who would need transportation to get to this program. So as of now, we currently have 5 Chatham residents attending this program, and 4 of those folks are using our transportation to get there. Because the Orleans Day program is currently the only adult day program operating on Cape Cod, you can imagine there's a great demand, and they have begun a wait list. There was initially 1 Chatham family on that wait list, but I'm happy to say that they were able they're in the process of working to integrate that family into the program. The goal is to scale up as long as the public health information, continues on this really positive trend. The goal is to get back to 18 clients a day. Certainly respite care and a supportive program like this works best when it's on a regular routine schedule. And I'm also, this was not covered in the emails, but I just want to point out that the cost for this program has not gone up since that initial 2016 MOA. So we really have been, this is really a great opportunity for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions for Mandy? Jeff?
No, I would like to move to approve the memorandum of agreement as requested with the town of Orleans to allow for continued access to the Orleans Adult Day Program or its respite program for Chatham residents.
Okay.
Second.
Do I have a second from Dean? Any further comments, Corey?
Just one minor, very minor. I just want to make one little edit that we should update the signature line under the chair of the town of Chatham on page 2 of 2 on the MOA to select board. Just make that minor edit, but other than that, I think we're good to go.
Same in the title, Corey.
Same in the title? Yep,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah.
Both places, yeah. Thanks.
Okay. All right, let's take a vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
All right.
Peter?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay, great. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you all.
All right, take care. All right, we are now going to have a little annual town meeting preparation discussion, setup, continuance, and or a rain date. And we have the moderator, Attorney Bill Litchfield, and our town manager, Jill Goldsmith. Jill?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So as you know, this Saturday is our annual town meeting, and we have set up for approximately 700 voters. And it's going to look a lot like it did at the last 2 outdoor town meetings that we had at Veterans Field. One thing I do want to note is that there's no tent. And so if participants need to provide some relief from the sun, certainly they can bring their own, mini umbrella and dress accordingly. But that was one of the things that we weren't able to secure. We do, however, have tents over the microphones and plan to have a podium with a microphone so people can come up to the front of the meeting and make comments. And the last thing I wanted to note is that, and this is why the moderator is here, is we need to figure out a plan B. So far, as of, I don't know, an hour ago, we saw that there's a potential of maybe 30% of showers, but it's been getting better every day. So we're remaining very hopeful for that. But we do have to announce a rain date and prepare for that. And this is something that we had discussed with the moderator when I had the meeting with the board chairs, the select board, the finance chairman, as well as staff and the town clerk. So logistics, they're planning to set up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And again, it will look a lot like it did before, but it is on the field, so dress accordingly. And check-ins will be very controlled by who is able to check in to make sure that the voters and non-voters are kept separate. And we'll have the CERT volunteers available with golf carts too to help people to get to the chairs. The chairs will be a little closer together. We had 6 feet distances between them, so there'll be some coupling of chairs of 2. Then maybe 1 and then 3. So people who are together with a family certainly can sit together, and that masks are welcome, but they're not required for the town meeting. And I'm happy to turn it over to the moderator through the chair if appropriate.
Thank you, Jill. Madam Chairman, may I
Yes,
respond
I'm sorry.
or comment briefly?
I was muted. I just said welcome.
That's all right. Bill Litchfield, thank you very much, Jill, and thank you, Shireen. I don't really have a lot to say beyond what Jill just did. Check-in will start at 11 a.m. And we will have, as Jill said, accommodations for 700 people. We hope to get that many. Just one procedural matter, we will, as we have done in past years, have a proposed consent calendar for the voters, which as of this afternoon, I think has 27 articles. Nearly half of the articles will be proposed for consideration jointly. Of course, any voter can remove or ask that an article be removed and discussed separately. But that, if it goes forward, will be a significant time-saving device. I think the thing that Jill obviously just mentioned is the question of timing. It takes staff 3.5 hours to set the chairs up. Like Jill and everybody else have been following the weather forecasts, it appears that there is a 24 to 30% chance of showers in the morning. But my inclination would be to proceed on Saturday if it's at all possible. We do have to have a cutoff time by which time we decide. We talked about Wednesday. I'm not sure if that's still feasible. Maybe we could bump it a little bit later. You can always do a reverse 911 call to put out the word if there is a postponement. And the second thing that Jill mentioned, which is important, is to what, if we do need to postpone it, to what day. Sunday at 1 p.m. is one option. Monday at 5:30 or 6 p.m. is another option. I don't think there's any likelihood of having 3 rain days in a row. So Sunday would be my first preference. Monday would be my second preference. A further consideration is that if we do start on Saturday, I think we'll finish in 4 or 5 hours. But if for some reason we don't finish on Saturday, to what date do we adjourn? It's up to the meeting, but I think the meeting tends to follow the guidance of the select board. So your thoughts on those issues would be welcomed by both Jill and myself.
Thank you, Bill. I think one of the questions that has arisen in discussion of which day to have it was, we do have childcare on Saturday. But Jill, can you speak to the availability of childcare on Sunday and Monday or Monday?
Sure. So we haven't secured childcare for Sunday yet. We're still working through, and with staffing on that, that's one of the factors. Monday, I believe that we were able to secure it, but that's still something that probably by tomorrow or the next day, I need to finalize. So again, as the moderator said, if we can try to finish it on Saturday, because there's still like a 2.5 hour breakdown afterwards to get the chairs back to where they need to go. And if it's continued to the next day, we have to set it up all over again. We can't leave the chairs out overnight, nor can we leave the audio equipment out overnight as well. So it's a brand new setup.
Okay. Thoughts from the board? Dean.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. If it goes to a Monday evening, either by adjournment or as a rain date, is that going to be outside or is that indoor?
It would be outside.
Okay. Are we going to have the big flashcards for voting that we had? Because I think that was really good. I think it helped the moderator when he was assessing as well as the tellers. Is that the plan again? We had an 8.
We'll have them available, but I defer to the moderator about how he's going to call for the votes.
Thank you, Jill. I inquired of Dr. Duncanson and the Board of Health as to whether there was any concern about voice votes, and there is none. So we will take voice votes to expedite things. But I'm told that we have not only large cards, but large bright pink cards, which will also help me to see cards as raised.
Okay, my last question is how are the select board, the town manager, and the finance committee going to be situated? At the last couple of meetings, it was simply the chair of each body that was in front, along with yourself, Jill.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So what we were thinking about doing is having it set up as a more traditional town meeting, so that with the moderator on the stage per se, and then have tables to one side for the select board. We were thinking 2 to a table, And I just have to confirm how large the tables were, because it could be 2 to a table, or it could potentially be 3. So 1 at each end of the table and 1 in the middle. And this relates to your comfort level as well. And the same on the other side with the finance committee. So sitting to the left of the moderator, having a number of tables set up so that there could be 2 or 3 to a table. And we have the number of, I think there's 1 or 2 FinCom members that may not be in attendance. So we're going to do that. We're also going to have a microphone on the table that will be, hopefully it's a portable one that, again, your comfort level of having to share a microphone, we can certainly wipe them off. But it's looking more like a traditional town meeting, except for it being outdoors.
Well, I guess I had a follow-up, and this is really directed at Bill. If a select board member or a finance committee member wishes to speak to an issue, when we've had these in the past, many of us, and myself included, have always gone down to the well rather than speak from the podium. What is your preference, Bill?
Thank you. If I could, through the chair, I've never had any concern about members of the select board speaking from the podium or up front or going down. Totally up to you. The important thing is that the voters know who you are and you're expressing your views. So I don't have a strong preference in that regard. From my perspective, perfectly fine to speak from up front.
Thank you. And my final comment is I support the Sunday as the alternative rain date, as well as the continuation date. I personally would like to see us finish up on Saturday, no matter how long it takes, but I think that's really up to the body itself. Thank you. Appreciate all the work you're doing on this.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Jeff?
Thank you, Shireen. Yeah, I support Sunday as the continuation date and or the rain date. Just looking at the weather, I know it's iffy and the forecasts, are never exact, but it does look like Sundays. It looks like a pretty darn good day right now. So, especially around noontime, 1 o'clock. And Saturday doesn't look too bad either. So, knock on wood. So, but I would support Sunday. I just asking a question. We have to break it down, the chairs down. Why, Jill? Because we just don't want them hanging around overnight. I understand the audio equipment, but
Yeah, and I think we're getting most of the chairs from the school department, and that was a requirement from them. And then we're having to rent a certain number of chairs too. So I don't think there's a way to secure them. But again, I just have to check in back with the DPW team on what their plans are. But they had anticipated having to, I guess, deconstruct the site and then reconstruct it in the next day.
they're just metal chairs though, right? They're just the same metal chairs we've always used. Yeah.
I think so. I was trying to remember too, what we had at town meeting. I think they are the metal chairs.
Yeah. And if we left them out, we could maybe wipe them down if we got a little dew on them or something. It seems like an awful lot of work to break them down and set them up. That's all. Yeah. But anyway, I'm in favor of Sunday. That's my, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
All right. My only concern still is the daycare issue. I think it's important that we secure that if it's going to be Sunday. I prefer Sunday if that's the case as well. Peter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too prefer Sunday if we can get daycare. I think that actually the temperature looks halfway decent, but you never know. And yes, I would also, as long as we can, get it done on Saturday. Whatever we can do to make that happen. Thank you.
Yeah. Corey?
No, I'm perfectly fine with Sunday as a rain date and or a continuation date. And daycare obviously will address, probably Sunday would be easier. I mean, you got a playground next door. We could just expand the perimeters of the town meeting and get creative. We really, really had to, I guess, but no. I think Sunday is perfectly fine. Covers both bases.
I personally have no problem with children in attendance of town meeting too. It'd be great to see kids sitting on people's laps, if they, if they had to. But I wouldn't, if we can provide something, it would be really great. So do we need to make a motion on that to proclaim that as a continuance date, or is that just a mere suggestion or probability? What's
for Bill Litchfield? From my perspective, Madam Chairman, it's simply guidance for us as we go forward.
Okay. Is there any other issues that we need to address from your perspective, Bill?
No, thank you. Obviously, we will encourage everyone to come early. I have not confirmed with Julie, our town clerk, as to whether check-in will begin at 11. Do you happen to know, Jill, whether it's 11 or 11:30?
I thought it was 11:30, but we can
Okay.
certainly verify it unless Shauna recalls from her community update on town meeting.
Yes, I believe the check-in was 11:30.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Great. Just everybody remember to bring water, sunscreen, hats, and a coat because you never know what the weather's going to do. But all right, this should be really a good, robust meeting. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, take care. All right. Our next is the social media second review. Shauna.
Yes, thank you. First off, to answer some of the questions that were posed earlier.
Thank you.
The guidelines for the public posting, excuse me, that suggest no comments that support or oppose political candidates or ballot propositions. That would also apply to the authorized town staff that is posting. There are prohibitions on advocating for ballot propositions, so we would not be posting anything of that nature, nor for any political candidates. And so this was guidance to the public to not advocate for a particular candidate or question on a posting of another nature published by the town. Once a project is approved, like a capital project has gone through the process, and once it is approved, then it is, if you will, to be fair game for both town postings and public comments. And then the other questions on where the development of the policy came from. Ryan Darman, the IT manager, created the first draft, and he had first worked with best practices from Archive Social, which is an archiving service, if you will, for municipalities of social media content. And then he looked at policies from the towns of Sandwich, Situate, Falmouth, Hingham, and Wareham. And we've also collected from Ashburnham, Ashland, Braintree, Eastham, Lakeville, Lanesboro, Otis, Situate, and Barry, Ipswich, and Lunenburg. We've reviewed many of the policies just to see how deep in content some have gone and how, what the common factors are. And we believe that we've taken some of the most common language from a variety of them and sort of fine-tuned it to be a pretty basic but solid policy for the town.
Thank you for addressing those questions up front. I think Dean has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Shauna, I think there's an edit on page 2, all the bullets in the middle of the page, the 5th one up, grammatically, I think in the second line, you might want to drop a semicolon after the word rights, where it says rights will be at the end, and then insert the word such will be deleted from this page, because otherwise there's no sentence there. But I had a follow-up question about the no comments that support or oppose ballot propositions. You did say that if something has been approved, you could comment on it, but what about an issue that is still open that has 2 components to it? One is a ballot question and one is a vote at town meeting to approve a borrowing. Is that subject, because I think that was part of the question that Ms. Gibbs asked. Is that prohibited by either the public or town staff? In other words, commenting solely on the item that's before town meeting, not on the item that's on the ballot.
Again, through the chair, I think this would be an area that town staff would be particularly cautious about because of the connection to a ballot question. We would be very careful about doing any kind of advocacy for something that has a ballot question.
Well, what about a member of the public? So let me give you a concrete example. So we'll take the senior center. That has 2 pieces to it. So someone likes the senior center or someone hates the senior center. So they post an entry that says, vote against or vote for the senior center at town meeting. Vote for article, whatever it is, it's 15 or article 16. But they don't say anything about voting for or against the ballot question, which is independent of town meeting. Can they post that? Can a member of the public post that? That's the question. Is
So
that what's the intent here? I really want to get at that.
Sure. If the town would have the opportunity to educate on town meeting warrant articles. So we could certainly provide plans, design, costs for the warrant article without advocating one way or the other for it. If someone chose to express their opinion on that type of post, whether they support or don't support it, I think we would probably be fairly lenient. It would be it wouldn't be a hard line. It would be, we'd have to take each case into consideration and is this a hard advocacy vote no, or in my opinion, it's not the right site or the right type of building or something like that. I think it would have to be under review.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add in conclusion that perhaps we should see what other towns are doing in these instances. I personally would favor the ability of a member of the public to post their views either way on any item that's before town meeting. I would have a problem with something that's on the ballot for obvious reasons in either direction. So, or a political candidate, either direction. But that's my thinking on it. Thank you.
Yes, I would agree that our discussions have been that it would be a pretty egregious, something would have to be fairly egregious for us to remove public comment.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Corey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to admit, the use of social media is not my strong point. I get that totally. I'm just for devil's advocate. With all the other sites out there and the upgrading of our town website, is this having the town social media account really going to be a benefit for the town, or are we creating something that's going to have to be moderated at such a full-time job that we don't gain what the full extent of it? So I'm just a little cautious about this. I've had some conversations with some people, and like I say, social media not my strong point. I totally admit that. Is this something that we really should be venturing into? I'm throwing it out for quick conversation.
I guess it's from your perspective too, Corey. I think there's a lot of folks out there that are getting their news sources and their information from not just one source, like the newspaper, the local newspaper, or the coffee shop. Social media is like the coffee shop. It's where people are exchanging thoughts and ideas, opinions and whatnot. So I would take it like I would take a social media commenting on an article or commenting on a subject matter around the town, similar to people commenting to us, during our forum. It's another form of a forum, and people are using it more and more. Some people are using it less and less because they're sick of it. But I mean, there's a mixed bag. But it's another, for me, in going through a lot of the things through COVID, I'm working with the town. It's often was, well, we don't have a social media page, so we can't just put it out there. We have a press release or it's on the website. But it wasn't, people weren't getting information as quickly as they could have if they were, signing up to a Facebook page for the town of Chatham. It just because I'm actively using it and using a select board page to post things and information when I can, or to town sort of sites, people are getting the information. So that's what I see it as, is it's just another vehicle and venue for us to be able to provide information to the public, if that helps.
No, it does help, but I understand. I mean, like I say, I mean, full admitted, I didn't get into Facebook until we had the big hurricane and the power outages, and I kept pestering my wife about the fire department's Facebook and looking for updates, and she finally got so perturbed at me that she turned it around one day and set up my own Facebook account. Said, "Here, stop asking me questions." Boom, I got a Facebook account. So. That's how I got into it. So I guess I'm just throwing it out there for conversation. I mean, to have a policy, if we're going to do this, yes, it makes sense to have a policy. So, just wanted to get my 2 cents out there. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dean?
Well, I've spoken once, but
okay.
I just want to ask, just follow up. Do we have to take a vote on this tonight? Is it something that we could defer? Perhaps till after town meeting, after the town election, and have the board consider, in later in the month of June. And I appreciate all the work that's been done on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there might have been a tie-in with the website launch and whatnot, but if we're not ready to vote on this, we're not ready to vote on it. And Shauna's got her hand up, and Jill just popped into the world, so maybe we can hear better from them. Shauna?
Yes,
Jill?
I was just going to say that we can certainly defer if the board's not comfortable voting, and the launch of the social media accounts just will occur later.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Jeff?
Same thing. We're looking to launch the website at the, I think maybe the week of the 22nd of June. So, I mean, we have a lot of questions that we can do some more research, maybe give you some examples of what other towns are posting on their Facebook pages. And then the only other form of community engagement, there's sometimes, and we see it with the chamber, they use Facebook Live, which is a pretty cool thing to use to film, the ribbon cuttings, or if we were going to do a show, or, I'm not sure if we'd ever film town meeting, but it's something that through the Facebook platform works really well. So if we want to postpone it to the 15th or the 26th, those are your 2 next meetings, we can certainly do that and get back to you with more information.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, sounds good. I'm good with that. That's fine.
Okay. All right, so if everybody's okay and nobody wants to make a motion tonight, we'll postpone until an upcoming meeting as recommended by Dean. Everybody good with that?
Fine.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, Shauna. Okay. Our last order of business is reappointment to boards, commissions, and committees. And the last time we had a litany of recommendations, we did it in a more broad stroke. And so I'm going to turn to Dean because you proposed it the last time, Dean.
Well, I was going to propose it tonight. I didn't know if anyone had any abstentions or extractions they wanted from this list.
Not from this list for me.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to offer this comprehensive motion to make the following reappointments. I'll name these committee, the applicant, and the expiration date. Open Space Committee, David Doherty as the Chatham Conservation Foundation representative, expiration date June 30th, 2024. All of these are unless a sooner revoked or a successor is appointed. John Jack Farrow, expiration 30th, 2024. Diane Didi, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Local State Building Court of Appeals, Harry Howard, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Park and Recreation Commission, Iris Selden, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Kimberly Robbins, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Public Ceremonies Committee, Robert B. Franz, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Railroad Museum Group, Elizabeth McCart, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Bruce Evans, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Traffic Safety Committee, Joan Craig, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Diane Rowlings, expiration date June 30th, 2024. Waterways Advisory Committee, David Oppenheim, expiration date June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Jean.
Second.
And Jeff just second. We'll take a vote. Corey,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. So all have been reappointed, 5-0. All right, that is it for us tonight, folks. That's our agenda. So I'm accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved,
adjourn.
Madam Chair.
Yep, so
All right, I
moved.
got everybody saying, I think
Second.
okay,
Second.
I heard Peter and Jeff. I'm going to call it that way.
Okay.
All right, we'll take a vote. Corey,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and chair says aye. And just thank you, everyone. And we will be doing a hybrid next week.
Yeah.
So enjoy your week. We'll see you Saturday at town meeting. And thank you, Jill and staff for their presentations tonight.
Good job.
Good night.
Good night.
Great job,
night.
everybody.
Good
Thank
night,
you so much.
Chatham.